Here we go. I'd like to welcome all the attendees to the organizational meeting with the Vacaville Unified School District Board of Trustees, and welcome the public. We'll move on to right away to item number 4, the oath of office. We have 4, 1 returning and 3 new board members that we need to swear in before we can officially swear at you, and then that'll come afterwards. But we'll start with our re-elected board member, Michael Kitsis, who's going to be sworn in by Dr. Jane Shamia. Dr. Jane.
Thank you, Michael. Hi, Michael. Can you raise your right
I got it.
hand? And repeat after me. I, Michael, do solemnly swear
I, Michael Kitsis, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California.
that was a lot of words. Hold on, let me put it up on the screen. That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California.
That I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
That I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
With the authority granted to me by the Constitution of the State of California, I proclaim you duly elected and installed to assume the duties as a member of the governing board of the Vacaville Unified School District. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, congratulations, Michael. We'll next move on to Cecil Conley, who's going to be sworn in by Fairfield Mayor Harry Price. Welcome to you both.
Thank you very much. And retired teachers often live in reflected glory, and this is one of those examples tonight. And I am very pleased to swear in Cecil Conley. So Cecil, I, state your name, please.
I, Cecil Conley,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
With the authority granted to me by the Constitution of the State of California, I proclaim you duly appointed and installed to assume the duties as a member of the governing board of the Vacaville Unified School District. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Price.
You're very welcome. You make me very proud. Thank you.
All
Awesome.
right, congratulations, Cecil.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you, Mayor Price. Appreciate that.
Thank
Next
you.
in line will be Daniel Santayan, and will be sworn in by Vacaville City Council member and ex-board member Nolan Sullivan. Good evening, Nolan.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. All right. Well, I'm honored to be here today. Daniel, you ready?
Yes, I am.
All right, let's do it. I state your name, do solemnly swear
I, Daniel Santan, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
With the authority granted to me by the Constitution of the State of California, I proclaim you duly appointed and installed to assume the duties of a member of the governing board of the Vacaville Unified School District. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, congratulations, Daniel, and welcome. And thank you, Nolan. Nice to see you. And next in line, Kelly Welsh will be sworn in by Michael Kitsis.
All right, Kelly, you ready? You got your kids there? Awesome. Okay. So I state your name,
I, Kelly Ann Welsh,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California,
to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation
that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
With the authority granted to me by the Constitution of the State of California, I proclaim you duly elected and installed to assume the duties as a member of the governing board of the Vacaville Unified School District. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yay!
Okay, congratulations to everybody, and thank you for everyone that took the time to swear in our new members. It's greatly appreciated. With that, we're going to move on to item number 5, which is a moment of reflection. All right, and thank you for that. We'll move on to item number 6, the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Jane, you've got our flag for us there. All right, if you join me in the pledge, I pledge allegiance
to
to the flag
Of the
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with
liberty and justice for all. All right. Okay, and then on to our first order of business tonight, which is election of the president. So I would open the floor to any nominations for president.
I have one.
Shelley.
I would like to nominate Michael Kitsis.
Second.
All right, nomination by Ms. Dally, second by Ms. Welsh. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, we'll roll call vote. Teresa?
Okay. I'm going to start with you, Ms. Welsh. Your vote, please.
Yes.
Mr. Jansen,
Yes.
Mrs. Dally,
Yes,
Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Mr. Santayan,
Yes.
Mr. Kitsis.
Yes.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. This is, I think, my fourth time, and I thank you very much for your confidence. And I have big shoes to fill from last year. So next thing we do is we're going to do the election of the vice president. And I actually would like to nominate Shelley Daly for vice president of the governing board for the term December 17th through December 16th, 2021.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, we got a motion and a second.
Okay.
Are there any other nominations? Okay, so the recommended action is that Shelley Daly be elected vice president of the governing board. Roll call vote.
Ms. Welsh, your vote, please.
Yes.
Mr. Jansen,
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling,
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Mr. Cynthian,
Yes.
and Mr. Kitsis.
Yes.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Mrs. Daly.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have election of the clerk of the board. Do you have any nominations? Ms. Daly.
I'd like to nominate John. And I say this only because we have 3 new members, and our normal procedure has been that we kind of have a lineup that goes from president to vice president to clerk in order of who's going to become president. Although we have all the discretion, we've always kind of followed that, at least for the last 17, 20 years. And because I don't know any of you 3, and because the job is so huge, if I'm vice president and next year I can't serve, I feel like it would be really important to have another person in line who is the experience of what it takes to become the president, because it's a huge job, in my opinion. I've done it once, and it takes so much to time, energy. You're the face of the board. You have to run the meetings and make sure that we operate as a team, and we've had times in the past where we've really had to have the president pull that together. So because I know John did such a great job last year under very difficult situations with COVID, I think that he would be somebody that I know could take it if I were unable to. So that's my reason.
Second.
Okay, I'd like to thank Mrs. Daly for the longest nomination I've ever experienced.
I want the board to understand why I was not including the newer people.
Of course, and I think that was very necessary. Yes, I appreciate that. Second by Mr. Conley. Are there any other nominations for clerk? Okay, be there none. The recommended action is for John Jansen to be elected the clerk of the governing board. Roll call vote.
Okay. Ms. Welsh, your vote, please.
Yes.
Mr. Jansen,
Yes, and thank you.
Mrs. Dowling,
Yes.
Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Mr. Cynthian,
Yes.
and Mr. Kitsis.
Yes. Okay, we go to 8C, which is appointment to appoint the superintendent as the secretary to the governing board. That's according to Board Bylaw 9122. The superintendent is to be appointed to serve as the secretary of the governing board. So do we have a motion and a second?
I'll be happy to move that.
Okay,
And I'll
motion
second
by
it.
Shelley,
Second.
second by John.
Okay,
Yeah.
Ms. Welsh, your vote, please. Okay,
You're on
gotcha.
mute, Kelly.
Okay, Mr. Jansen,
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling,
Yes.
Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Mr. Cynthian,
Yes.
Mr. Kitsis.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, the next thing we have is the recognition of service for John Jansen for being governing board president over the last year. So John's going to be recognized for his service. Jane?
Yes, sir. So can you see, hopefully you can see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, everybody see that? Okay, I
Yes.
would like to start out by welcoming and congratulating our new board members, Cecil Conley, Daniel Centean, and Kelly Welsh. welcome. Glad you're here. I've spent a little bit of time with you over the past couple of weeks, and I'm excited you're on the board. So I really am happy to acknowledge our outgoing board president, John Jansen. He's not leaving the board. He's just turned out his 1 year as board president, and he has done a phenomenal job this 2020 that has been such a challenge for all of us. And in case you don't know who John is, this is John. Like that. We'll put it out on a couple of photos as we go along, just for fun. During his year as board member, he wasn't, as board president, he was not just a great leader of the board, he was a great team member. He strived to consistently bring the board together as a team and ensure that they operate cohesively, even during some of our more difficult discussions. John has been a board member. See, there he is again, in case you can't pick up. He's been a board member for 5 years. And this was his first time as president. And as everybody knows, it has been a challenging year. But John consistently managed every board meeting very well and made sure everybody, board members and the public alike, were heard and what they said was considered. We had a lot of board meetings and workshops this year, especially discussing the reopening of schools. And everyone had very strong opinions and often opposing opinions. But John was very good at managing and really listening to people. And he did this all masterfully. I also just want to say, on a lighter note, I appreciated the way he started every board meeting, pointing out the exits and where the AEDs were. Because of his background as fire chief, we found that very useful, and I am going to miss that. Being a board president, just like being a board member, we all know that it just doesn't begin and end with board meetings. There's a lot of behind the scenes work that goes into being a board member and planning board meetings. John spent a lot of time really ensuring that our board agendas were very transparent and very clear to everybody. He took his role very seriously. He was very diligent and conscientious about this. And he also provided a lot of great leadership and support to me and our administrative team during this past year and many challenging situations. One of my favorite things about John is he's everywhere. He seems to be everywhere. You see him at classrooms and in events, and sometimes he actually knows things that are going on before I do, which sometimes is a little bit annoying to me, but he's good at telling me what's going on. He really does want to understand everything going on in the district, and he wants to be involved, and he strives to know all of the staff and to support all the administrators. And he actually is known to give donations to classrooms, and he actually once went out and distributed gift cards to every one of our crossing guards. So he's very appreciative and generous towards all of our staff. He took his role as board president very seriously. He made sure that he connected with people that came to the board meetings, and he addressed any issue or problems that occurred at board meetings. And he's always extremely welcoming and grateful to members of the public and staff that come to our board meetings. And lastly, you may not know this about John, but he's a bit of a local hero right now. In August, when we had our fires, he actually, because of his connection with the Office of Emergency Services, he showed up very early in the morning at the district office to help us when we set up a command center and started setting up evacuation centers. And while he was there at the district office, he heard of one of our staff members who was concerned because the fire had been dangerously close to her house and there were some smoldering embers there. JJ, without hesitation, put on his gear and actually went up to the property and started putting out the fires. And I know that staff member to this day is very grateful. So, oh, I get emotional when I talk about that. So, Mr. Jansen, I just want to say thank you. It's been a great year having you as board president, and I am virtually handing you this plaque that you will receive. And, oh, you got it. Oh, good. But thank you, JJ. And I have to say congratulations, Michael. I look forward to working with you again as board president, and it is your 4th year being board president, so we do have high expectations. But thank you, JJ. Job well done.
Thank you very much for the kind words. And I'm not going anywhere, so you're stuck with me for a while. So
Good.
but thank you very much.
Does anybody else want to say anything? I will.
I guess-
Oh, go ahead, Shelley.
I just want to reiterate what Jane said. This was a really tough year. You were able to do those Zoom meetings from never doing Zoom before to running them. And I thought that was amazing. Everything you've done, I felt you represented us well. I just felt like we were taken care of as a team. And yes, things sometimes got hot. You always handled it. And I am just really grateful that it was you during this year. So thank you. And I'm just glad you're on the board still.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll take that to be that she was grateful it wasn't me this year.
No.
I just want to say that I'm really hoping that that first picture that you showed there, Jane, was like a funhouse mirror or something, because we all looked about 3 feet tall in that. It's a little embarrassing.
I didn't notice that.
John really did an excellent job this last year. We actually had we had a well-functioning board, but ideologically it was a very split board. And John tended to kind of be in the middle as one erudite person in the district once told me. He was like John Roberts. He was kind of in the middle, ready to go to either side, whichever was appropriate for him. So, John, I want to thank you for doing it in a very neutral and calm fashion and being very fair. So, good job.
Excellent. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it.
I would just like
Okay.
to say real quick, John, I wanted to thank you in coming in here as a newbie, needing direction. John took me aside one day and we went and sat downtown and we had a nice conversation. I really learned a lot from his experience, and it gave me a real good idea of where I'm going with this, because admittedly I came in a little bit headstrong at some of the candidate events, but John really provided that voice of experience, and that's invaluable. So thank you very much.
Okay, what we're going to do now is we are going to recess from this meeting and go into the library board meeting. This is a crazy meeting. We have 3 meetings. So I'm going to knock and we're going to the library meeting. I'm going to establish a quorum. Everybody is still here. So now we have the approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Shelley?
I'll move it. Or
And I'll
second.
second it.
Okay. Motion and second. Can we get a roll call vote?
Okay, Ms. Welsh, your vote, please.
Yes.
Mr. Jensen,
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling,
Yes.
Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Mrs. Santiago,
Yes.
Mr. Kitsis.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, this next one, approval of the minutes from September 24th, 2020. Now, I thought this would be interesting because 3 people weren't here, but let's see what happens. So we have approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
I'll move
Again,
it.
and I'll second it.
Okay. Motion and second. Roll call vote. Teresa?
Ms. Welsh, your vote, please.
Yes.
Mr. Jensen,
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling,
Yes.
Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Mr. Santiago,
Yes.
Kitsis.
Yes. All right. Okay, do we have any comments from the floor about the library here? Usually not. Okay, seeing none, we'll go to the election of officers. The way it works is that the president and the vice president are usually the same. Actually, the president is the same and the secretary is, what is it, the vice president or the
The
clerk?
clerk. The
Clerk,
clerk.
okay. There we go. Election of officers, nominations for president.
I nominate you, Michael.
Okay, thank you, John.
Second.
Do we have a second?
Cecil seconded.
Cecil, thank you. Any other nominations? Okay. Roll call vote. Teresa.
Can't hear you.
Sorry, I was muted. Ms. Welch, your vote, please.
Yes.
Mr. Jansen,
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling,
Yes.
Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Mr. Santian,
Yes.
Gidsus.
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to recommend that John Jansen be elected Secretary of the Library Board.
Second.
Good one. There you go.
Cecil second.
Yeah.
Roll call vote.
Okay, Ms. Welch, your vote, please.
Yes.
Mr. Jansen,
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling,
Yes.
Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Mr. Santian,
Yes.
Mr. Gidsus.
Yes. Okay, great. Now we have action item 7A, adoption of resolution number 1 for this year. It's a resolution for the Vacaville Library Board establishing quarterly meetings as is required by the Ed Code. So it's requested that the board approve this resolution. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, Kelly,
Second.
John? Okay, roll call vote.
Okay. Ms. Welch, your vote.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Jansen,
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling,
Yes.
Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Mr. Santian,
Yes.
Mr. Gidsus.
Yes. Okay, we have next, we're going to establish the dates as March 18th, June 24th, September 23rd, and December 16th. Do I have a motion for that?
I
So moved.
motion that we approve those dates.
Okay, Cecil, motion, second Kelly.
Okay. All right, Ms. Welch, your vote, please.
Yes.
Mr. Jansen,
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling,
Yes.
Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Mr. Santian,
Yes.
and Mr. Gidsus.
Yes. Okay, now we'll get into some meat. The Library Commission report. Is Carol Sue Robeson on?
No, unfortunately, she's not able to join the meeting tonight, so there won't be a commission report.
Okay, fair enough. We'll wait till next time for that, but I take it that Suzanne, you are here.
Yes, I'm here
Okay.
on behalf of Bonnie Katz. So I just have 2 items I want to share with the board. First is, as you're aware, the Bay Area Regional Stay Home Order has been triggered. So starting tomorrow, the library will suspend patron access to our facilities and revert back to the curbside service only. All of our other services continue. Folks can contact the library via email or phone to talk with staff. Holds can be placed, materials can be returned to our book drops. Items can be picked up via the curbside service. We're just suspending the in-patron access right now during the stay home order. As I said, that goes into effect tomorrow. And then construction has started at the Vacaville Cultural Center Library on the AMH project. It's the automated material handling system. So we started the construction. So there is a little bit of work being done inside to accommodate the equipment. And we expect that construction to last about 3 weeks, and hopefully the total project will be done by March. So VTS, the Town Square Library already has that equipment in. So we're looking forward to having it at the Vacaville Cultural Center Library as well.
Does anybody have any questions for Suzanne? So I don't know if all of you know, but Vacaville is one of the strange places in the state. I think there are 3 where the district is the governing board for the library too. So we actually contract with the Solano County Library System to run the libraries in Vacaville.
And Dixon is the other, is another kind of the library school board setup. And so Solano County has 2 out of the 3 models in the state. So
Great. And Solano County's done a great job for us, so thank you.
Thank you. Well, that's my report. So thank you and have a great holiday.
You too.
Thank you.
So we will adjourn and we will go to the Public Financing Corporation's annual meeting. So the public financing, well, I'll actually let Kelly talk about that a little bit. So let me say that there is a quorum here and we can move to the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So
I'll
moved.
move it. Okay.
Okay, Shelley and John. Roll call vote.
Okay.
You're on mute again.
Okay, sorry. Ms. Welsh, your vote, please.
Yes.
Mr. Jansen,
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling,
Yes.
Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Mr. Santian,
Yes.
and Mr. Kitsis.
Yes, and just for the new board members and anybody that's the 51 people that are watching, appreciate that you're there. We're doing all these roll call votes because whenever you have people in different places, you have to do a roll call vote. So if we were all in the ESC right now, we would just be voting, at one time, yes or no. Okay, any comments from the floor? Oh, one raised hand apparently. You got that, Teresa?
Yes, I'm looking now. We have two. First person I have is Kelly Harper.
Kelly, are you unmuted?
Here. Yes. Hi there.
Hi.
Hi. Sorry to interrupt, but I was actually here because I got a letter on my doorstep about the Redwood Trees it was 621 South Orchard. And you
Yes.
guys are gonna be chopping.
Kelly,
some trees down.
So this is a weird time where we have 3 meetings today. This is the
Okay.
second one. We're going to go back to the regular one, and then
Okay.
that will be an item, and you can talk on that when that item comes.
Okay, about what time do you think that'll be?
Geez, it's hard to know.
Okay.
We just go along, and then when it comes up, I don't know.
Okay, I'll be patient. Thanks.
Okay, Kelly, thanks.
All right.
Okay, is there another one, Teresa?
Yes, that is Jeff Erickson.
Jeff, are you there? Looks like you're still muted, Jeff.
Yeah.
Okay,
Can you hear me now?
yes.
Okay, is this a time for just general comments or is this?
Only if you have general comments about the public facilities meeting. If not,
Okay.
then there'll be time when we get back to the regular meeting.
Okay, well, I guess I'll wait too. Thanks.
Okay, Jeff, thank you. Okay, so we're now going to do the approval of the minutes from last year. Do we have a motion?
I'll move it.
And I'll second it.
Okay, John and Shelley. Roll call vote.
Okay. Ms. Welsh, your vote, please.
Yes.
Mr. Jensen,
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling,
Yes.
Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Mr. Santian,
Yes.
Mr. Kitsis.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now we have the election of officers, and the recommended action is that the governing board officers be elected to the officers to the offices designated by the bylaws. So we'll just make a motion to do the same officers, and then we will elect the assistant, which will be the assistant superintendent of business. So can I get a motion to elect the same slate of officers for the public facilities?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you, Cecil.
Okay. Ms. Welsh, your vote, please.
Yes.
Mr. Jensen,
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling,
Yes.
Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Mr. Santian,
Yes.
Mr. Kitsis.
Yes. Okay, now we will elect the Assistant Secretary for the corporation. And Administrator recommends that Kelly Burks, who's the Assistant Superintendent of Business and Admin Services, to be elected. So can I have a motion?
I'll
So
move it.
moved.
Okay, John and then Kelly.
Okay.
Roll
What's your
call
vote?
vote.
Ms. Welsh, your vote, please.
Oh, yes.
Mr. Jansen,
Yes.
Mrs. Deli,
Yes.
Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Santian,
Yes.
Mr. Kitsis.
Yes. Okay, and now, Kelly, would you give us an update on the Public Facilities Financing Corporation projects?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Thank you. Good evening, Board President Kitsis, members of the board, and Superintendent Shemiya. I'm here this evening to present on the Public Facilities Finance Corporation. Next slide, please. So we have a separate corporation so that we can issue debt for capital improvements. It has its own tax ID number and is separate from the district. This corporation was established in 1990, and one of the requirements for the corporation is to hold an annual public meeting, which we do every December. Next slide, please. So first, we'll review the outstanding long-term debt. These are the general obligation bonds for measures V and A. We most recently issued our final series for measure A in April of this year, which was series D on that fourth line down. And since we just issued in April, there are no amounts that were due in 1920. Next year, you will see the debt service for this payment issued for this series. So these payments and property tax revenues are handled directly by the county, and we account for them in the activity in our Fund 51, the bond fund. Next slide, please. So here are our certificate of participation and the activity for that for 1920. We make 2 payments a year for the purchase of the district office, the ESC. The payments that we made this month was actually the first payment that we made with a principal amount. So we're starting to whittle away at that debt by paying against that principal, which is very exciting. So we're making progress. And the activity for the certificate of participation is recorded in Fund 40. Are there any questions?
Anybody have any questions? Okay. Thank you very much, Kelly.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're gonna adjourn this meeting and get back to the regular meeting, the organizational meeting. So before we do the approval of the agenda, I just have 2 things. Number one, really take time to ask questions or take time to comment if you have something you really need to say. I mean, especially for the new members, a lot of this is new, and there's absolutely no shame in having a question or not knowing. There's plenty of stuff that I don't know, and I've been around for a long time. So second thing, I just wanted to ask, I tend to be very informal. So I tend to call people by their first names. If people would rather be called by their last names, I'm agnostic to it. I don't mind. So if anybody has a thing about it, please let me know. And I guess if three or four of you want last names, I'll do last names. Otherwise, I'll just do first.
We're fine.
Anybody care?
First
No?
name's fine.
Okay. Very good. Okay, can I get a motion for the approval of the agenda for the organizational meeting?
Michael, I do have a change to the agenda.
Oh, thank you, Jane. What is that change?
19K, approval of developer fee report is pulled from the agenda. We have
We're
to,
going to do that at a future meeting.
yeah, we'll do it at a future meeting. We found an error on it, so it is pulled.
Okay, thank you. Is that the only one?
Yes, that's the only change.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, so can I get a motion for the amended agenda?
I move.
Did I get a second?
Second.
Okay, second. Okay, roll call vote.
Okay, Ms. Welsh, your vote, please.
Yes.
Mr. Jansen,
Yes.
Deli,
Yes.
Conley,
Yes.
Mr. Santian,
Yes.
Mr. Kitsis.
Yes. Okay, so next we have comments from the floor, and because Teresa and the district has been very good about this. I'm going to do it the normal way that we do it. They said we should be able to do it either way. So if anybody now has a comment that's not on the agenda, I know that Jeff Erickson, you had something general. So if it's not on something that's on the agenda, please raise your hand now and you'll be recognized. If you have something that's on a specific agenda item, please wait for that agenda item to come up and we'll give you a chance.
Michael, can I just add something for our new
Absolutely.
members? Just in case they didn't know, when we have comments of something not on the agenda, we as a board do not comment on those because it hasn't been agendized. So the public hasn't had a chance to come and be part of that discussion. And that's why we separate them. So if it's on the agenda as the later comments, we can talk back and forth with the person.
Thank you, Shelley. Okay, so do we have any there?
Yes. I have, first up is Mr. Erickson, Jeff Erickson.
Okay, Jeff, you're up.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, Jeff.
Okay, great. Good evening, President Kitsis and new board members. Congratulations, and also Superintendent Shamia. As we're winding up 2020 and looking toward a new year, I've always found this season to be a good time for reflection. Maybe you're that way as well. In your roles with the district, you're making important decisions every day that impact the lives of students and families. And I think it's helpful to take a look at the criteria that we use to make decisions. Certainly, we want to make the right decisions, do what's best for students. Obviously, you wouldn't be in the roles that you're in if that wasn't your heart. But sometimes, how do we know if we're making the right decisions? About 100 years ago, there were educational reformers who decided that they could guide the public school system just fine without God and parental authority. Personally, I don't think that approach has worked out too well. So I guess I'd like to encourage you in your own individual decision-making to inform that process with the scriptures, Bible. The book of Proverbs in the Hebrew scriptures, the Old Testament of the Bible, was written by Solomon, who was described as the wisest person who ever lived. There's a lot of really practical wisdom there. And Jesus's New Testament teachings in the Gospel of John and the Apostle Paul's letter to the Romans are two of my favorites that I've gotten a lot out of. So I guess I just want to challenge you to perhaps read these, and let the writer speak to you, speak to your heart. I think you'll be surprised at the insights that you gain. And so that's pretty much it. I just want to encourage you with that. And thank you for all your service to our community and what you're going to be doing for our community in the years to come. And I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. John, are you doing the timing?
No, it should be done, but Ken, do you have the ability to run a clock? Or, I mean, I can do it, but it would be nice if it pops up.
Okay, Teresa's doing it.
Teresa, you're doing it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Teresa's doing it. Yeah, we
Can I
don't.
ask? We don't have the ability to have it up like we did at the ESC.
We'll add that to future meetings. We didn't account for that on this.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, so the next person, Mr. Kitsis, is Kristin Navarro.
Kristin, welcome. I think she's having a hard time getting on. Ken, any insight here?
I suggest we come back around to her. Her screen is staying blank.
Okay.
Okay. We will come back around to you, Kristin. You won't lose it.
Okay, next would be Mr. Edward Russell Jr.
Okay, Ed, are you here?
Hello.
Who's that?
That's Kristen.
Okay, Kristin, you can go. You're muted though, Kristin.
This is Edward Russell. Is it my turn? I got kicked out and then logged back in.
Go ahead, Edward. We'll get back to you, Kristin. Go ahead, Edward.
I apologize.
No, no problem.
I'm not sure. Good evening. Let's first just recognize the Native American soil that we're on. So this evening, I'm speaking as Edward Russell, CEO and founder of a local nonprofit, BRUH, serving Greater Solano County. I think there's a disconnect and a gray area between adults, the government, and what real life people are facing. With the school shut down, we do have some students struggling, and it's a shame. I've been and spoke to families in Vallejo, Fairfield, and Vacaville. We do have students who are logging in. That's great. I know all the districts have given out equipment, Wi-Fi. That's great. But there's a real challenge that we can't figure out yet. And again, as a leader of a nonprofit looking to help young folks educate themselves and do what they can, sometimes in one household, you might have five different schools, 5 different children going to 5 different schools, all logging in at the same time, possibly a parent that needs to log in for either their work or their school. The environment is not conducive to learning. It's just too chaotic. We really have to do something to address this. Teachers are doing an outstanding job, but we still have that disconnect, those lost children. Black and Latino children were already going to be behind when distant learning started. Now they're falling even further behind because of the distractions that's going on. I think going into this break, as a governing board, if you're following Robert's Rule of Law, you have the wherewithal to call emergency meetings. I know under the Education Code 35144, you can do a special meeting that says time and place and the specific business that's going to be talked about. I think prior to school reopening January 4th, or resuming, we have to do something or our kids are going to continue to fall behind. We are setting them up for failure. So please, we have to address this. Otherwise, as a school board, as a community, as human beings, we are severely hindering our children's education. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Edward. Okay, I've been informed actually that it takes 30 to 45 seconds to actually get on. So we'll just kind of mellow out a little bit in that way. Kristin, are you back?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, welcome new trustees. First, I'd like to ask the district to consider putting in brand new sod at the Jepson football and soccer fields. Though my son is now at Vaca High, I think it's in the best interest of all the students, current and future, to have a safe field to play on. The joke while my son attended was that it was a good day if no one twisted their ankle. The grass is pretty bad. More importantly, I wanted to point out that quite a few local schools have been back to full-time in-person learning for weeks and even months now. They operate with strict safety protocols equal to the systems the Vacaville Unified School District has in place to ensure a safe environment for when our students return. Those schools have proven a safe return is absolutely possible. Our public students deserve the same caliber of education. I know our teachers are doing their best with online teaching, but it is not equivalent. That's pretty much all I wanted to say, and thank you and happy holidays.
Thank you, Kristin. Appreciate it. Teresa, are there any other hands up? Teresa? Are there any other hands or no? Oh, you were muted. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I keep forgetting to unmute. Kristin Meek is our next speaker.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. So I'm a parent to a junior at Wellesley High School, where I also attended. I wanted to come speak tonight, or actually sign on, I guess I should say, on behalf of the parents that want their kids back in school and every child that is struggling with mental health at this time. With all the districts in the state have done to provide for safety measures, there's absolutely no excuse for our kids to not be receiving in-person instruction. The in-person instruction they're entitled to in a public school setting. Vacaville Unified has had a couple different categories of students on campuses for quite a few months now. And because those students were on school campus, we can be going back in person because we're in the purple tier. Sorry, I was reading the wrong sentence there. So what I was trying to say was, because we had students on campus, we have the opportunity to open before we move back to that tier. The school board is telling me that it's the VTA, and the teachers tell me it's the district. I can't speak for the VTA because after many attempts to talk to the president, I was never returned an email or a phone call. And while we're talking about students on campuses, I'm wondering why those certain students were given the opportunity to learn in person and others were not, because every single student is struggling at this time. I've heard the teachers' concerns of contracting the virus or the potential of bringing it home to their family, and I'm empathetic to them and anyone who's immunocompromised. However, all the safety measures demanded by the VTA has been provided. Over $1 million has been spent, in fact. There isn't any more that can be done. This virus has a 99% survival rate and is not worth the detriment of our kids learning, or worse, the potential of losing any one of our kids to suicide. Our teachers are essential. Our kids need in-person instruction. For over hundreds of years, teachers have been exposed to viruses and sicknesses, including TB, which killed 1.4 million Americans in 2019. I think we can work together to achieve in-person instruction. Kairos School is offering a choice. Why can't that be arranged here? The parents and teachers that want to stay on distance learning can. Those that want to be in person can. We must do whatever it takes. I'm tired of the excuses. For every day we as adults sit around and do nothing is another day our kids' mental health and physical health is severely impacted. It's another day we could lose a child to suicide. It's another day we miss out on lifelong memories. It's another day they miss out on learning, because let's be real, 45 minutes on Zoom is just not enough. It is imperative that we get our kids back in school. Jane, you have the authority to do it, and the board, you do as well. I will continue to organize and promote our No Zoom Wednesdays until our kids are back for in-person learning. Thank you for your time and your service to the board.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you for your input. Are there any others?
No.
Okay. So we'll move on to public hearing. We can do a public hearing for public review of the VUSD Board of Education and Vacaville Teachers Association initial negotiations proposals, and that's going to be Chris Hewlett and Brenda Hensley. Hey, Brenda.
Good evening, board. Good evening, President Kitsis, members of the board, Superintendent Shimio. Tonight, we're coming forward with our initial proposal for our sunshine proposal for bargaining for the 2020 and 2021 school year. The way this works is the district produces what we call our proposal, and it's included here in the agenda item. We're proposing that we're going to open Articles 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, and 19. And then I'll pass it off to Brenda Hensley, who is my opposite on the VTA side.
Counterpart.
Counterpart. That was the word I was looking for. Counterpart. Thank you.
It's okay, Chris.
I blanked.
It's okay. Thank you. So good evening, board members. Welcome, new board members. I haven't had the chance to meet most of you, but I am Brenda Hensley, and I'm a mathematics teacher at Wellesley High School. And this is my 27th year in the district. I've spent my entire career in this district. Just a little bit about me. I serve as the VTA treasurer, but I'm here in my capacity as the VTA bargaining chairperson tonight. And VTA is pleased to open the successor agreement to our contract that actually expired in June of 2020. Clearly, we've been busy doing other things. The district and VTA have agreed to several things involving safety. And a way forward to hopefully bring back students in person, given certain criteria, if the county can get its act together and get well again. So we would like to also continue to do an interest-based bargaining approach. We have found great success with that in the past. It really appeals to me. I'm a mathematics teacher, problem solver, not just math problems. And it's a really great way to show that for the most part, the district and the teachers and the counselors and all of our interests line up. And so we'd like to continue doing that. And we have discussed with the district team doing some more training around interest-based bargaining, because we have new people on both of our teams, and we would like to continue that in an effective way. So VTA is opening up not as many articles, but Article 3, wages, Article 4, hours of employment, Article 5, health and welfare benefits, Article 9, class size, and we also would like to do a new article on due process and progressive discipline. And we're looking forward to a swift reconciliation of 2021, because we're halfway through it. But we will hopefully start bargaining in January. And yeah, thank you very much. If I could, President Kitsis, just have I don't know if you want to, I don't know if you use Roberts, but a point of personal privilege, if I could. I just want to say to the Vacaville Unified School District community, and that includes many people on the Zoom call tonight, just the generosity and the thoughtfulness that you've all shown me. I lost my home in the Hennessy fire in August, and just the outpouring of, like I said, love and generosity from administrators and board members and students and staff. It's just been incredible. So I just wanted to take tonight to, since I'm here, to thank you all very much. And I hope you all have a good evening.
Thank you, Brenda. I wanted to add one more thing, Michael, President Kitsis.
No.
We completely agree with the interest-based bargaining, and look forward to sharpening our tools in that regard. We tried it last year and we were okay at it, but we definitely need more training, and we look forward to bargaining with the teachers union this year.
Thanks.
Thank you. Brenda, it goes without saying that all the teachers, but you personally are a valued member of the community, and it was really great to see that outpouring of love and kindness for you when you lost your house.
Thank you.
I have one question here. Chris, it says in the writing here, it says we'll present articles for the 2020 to 2023 successor collective bargaining agreement.
Correct. We're looking for a 3-year deal.
Okay.
Every year, the compensation and benefits would come open, but it would be a 3-year contractual deal. So we would begin negotiating now for a 3-year deal.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So now, if anybody in the public has any comment about specifically the initial proposals for negotiations, you're free to comment. No? Okay, thank you. Do any board members have any questions, comments? All right, let's move on to 13B, which is a public review of VUSD, Board of Education, and SEIU, Service International Union, Service Employees International Union, Local 1021 for their initial negotiation proposals. And that will be Manolo Garcia and Anthony Manietta. Manolo?
Try that again.
Great.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Shamiya, and I want to give a special welcome to our new board members. I'm hoping that my counterpart, Anthony Manietta, SEIU president, is also available. It is my pleasure to jointly sunshine with Mr. Manietta negotiations between the Vacaville Unified School District and SEIU Local 10-1. The district and SEIU are negotiating a 2-year successor contract. Our previous contract expired on June 30th, 2020. So we look forward this negotiating year to a 2-year negotiating a successor 2-year contract. During these negotiations, we are opening all articles of the collective bargaining agreement for discussion. The district is looking forward to a timely and successful round of negotiations. So thank you very much. And I'd like to turn it over to Anthony, if he is here, to say a few words.
Teresa, is Anthony on? Is that a no?
I don't see him.
Okay. All right, Manolo, we'll go with you then.
All right.
And does anybody have any comments about Manolo's report? Okay, hearing none, we'll get out of the public hearing and we'll go to 13C, which is the notification of closure for district-operated California state preschool programs. And that's, if anybody, any questions about that, that's going to be Sasha and Lauren. Sasha, you going to provide a report about that?
Yes.
Okay.
Teresa, should I share my screen?
I got it up here, right there.
Okay.
Okay. Hold on, I'm gonna try. Where's the? Is that it? Yes.
Yep.
Okay. There we go.
Thank you. So good evening, governing board members. I'm excited to meet our new governing board members, and good evening, President Kitsis. I haven't had the opportunity to say that yet, and Superintendent Shamiya. My name is Sasha Bigel. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Options and Supports. And one of the most fun things I get to do in my job is oversee our preschool program. So this evening, I'm going to just do a quick presentation about our California preschool program, which is centering around the closure notice we have to provide. So our California preschool program, or CSPP, which is how we will refer to it. If you want to do next slide, Teresa, is relatively new. So just 3 years ago, we applied for and were granted funding from CDE for 3 preschool classrooms, And after going through the process to get those classrooms licensed and find appropriately credentialed staff, because the credentials are different than our K-12 teachers, we were able to start 3 classrooms, 1 at Markham and 2 classrooms at Fairmont. Next slide, Teresa. So all of these classrooms have actually been engaging in virtual instruction during the closures. And if you want to pause for a second and think about how crazy that might sound, right? You've got 12 3-year-olds or 4-year-olds on a Zoom. I did have a chance, actually, just this morning, I was in a classroom, and I've been so impressed with how our teachers are being creative, how much learning is taking place, and even in such a difficult time, really being able to connect with those families and students. So that's been neat to see. But recently, some legislation was passed that allows the CSPP classrooms that are operated by school districts, because a number of these programs are operated by non-school districts or non-LEAs, but they have allowed those that are operated by a school district to remain closed if the campus on which they're located is closed, with the one requirement that the governing board must hold a public hearing to discuss this closure. So we recognize that that seems a little out of place. We're discussing the possibility of a closure several months after we've actually had a closure. But unfortunately, just due to the timing of the legislation being passed, that's where we are. They passed the legislation after the closures happened. This was largely in response to all of the other things that have been happening with COVID and the responses to that. So currently our district, just to give you perspective, is budgeting for approximately $375,000 to operate these programs. And those funds are largely tied up and being utilized for staffing, as would be expected. And in order to receive that revenue from CDE, we need to be able to provide proof of this public hearing this evening when we submit our attendance data to CDE for those revenue streams to come in. So next slide, Teresa. So just to clarify, the CSPP programs are currently, like I said, receiving virtual instruction, and they will continue to do so until the classrooms on the campuses of Markham and Fairmont specifically are able to open. And the CSPP is following and will continue to follow all the same safety procedures and protocols that have been determined for our TK through 12 programs. We have grouped all of those in with our reopening plans. When we do open for hybrid learning, the one difference is that these preschoolers will attend 2 days a week for 3 hours at a time, as opposed to the 4 days a week in person, 2.5 hours, which is what our elementary students are slated to get in hybrid. That's because the length of time, the 3 hours, is required by CDE in order to receive the grant funding. And then second to that, there's not really a way for us to do an AM and a PM for 4 days a week, because the way these classrooms are already built sort of at the outset is with an AM and a PM session. That's a typical preschool programming. And so that's how we've already started. So with that, are there any questions?
Any board members have any questions? I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
But I'm happy for anybody else to go first if they want to. Okay. Jane, I'm not seeing this. Maybe I'm missing it later on in the agenda. Which item is it? It says.
Oh, are you asking if you vote on it later on in the agenda?
Well, that's what it says. It says after the public hearing, the board will be asked to consider the approval of the report.
19J.
19J. Okay, got it. Okay. So I have a question in terms of, so it sounds like we make a decision whether to have these classes open or not at this point. Is that correct? I mean, in other words, it says, I think I read that it says we have the option, if the school site is closed, to close these classrooms. Is that correct?
Right, yes. And the difficulty is that, the members in these classes are also part of our labor union, so they're covered under that MOU. So there's a little bit of connection there that makes it difficult. But yes, if to remain closed, we need to be able to show that we've had this public hearing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess I'd just like to maybe not right this moment, but I'd like to talk about it a little more. I mean, I understand that, we passed an MOU and that was kind of done. And, these kids are very young. And, I think there could be some conversation or question. Maybe we could just have a conversation about it as to whether it might make sense to have these kids have some in-person.
And we've been looking at that, and we're actually working with VTA. There's a couple of other items that came from CDE, whereas there was guidance for the K-12 school, TK through 12 schools that was provided by CDE. The guidance, well, it wasn't guidance, it was you shall do. They were the shall do's requirements were provided for CSPP. So there's a couple of other things that we already are going to have to amend. And that information, like much of the information that CDE has been able to produce, just because of the changing ongoing nature of COVID and everything related to that, has been kind of trickling in. And so we are working with VTA on a couple of the other points that are different, that are required by CDE to operate CSPPs that are not necessarily requirements for TK through 12. So there's already a conversation started with them about that. And we are looking at to open the preschools at the soonest possible opportunity. There are classrooms at Fairmont and Markham that have other programming for special needs students that we want to open and are covered. And as soon as those are open, the state actually requires us to operate the CSPPs on those campuses. So they will likely go back before the TK to 3 group regardless.
Mm-hmm. So which campuses are the special education students being served currently?
Currently, the students that are being served are at the Orchard campus. There are 2 classes. At Payton, there is 1 class. At Browns Valley, there is 1 class. At Hemlock, there are 3 classes. And at Cooper, there are 2 classes.
Mhm. But there just aren't right now at Markham and Fairmont, did you say?
Correct, yeah, because the category of the classes aren't ones that we've started operating yet.
Mhm. Well, again, I would like to look at that a little further because I think that merits conversation.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, last chance. Anybody else? Okay, then we'll leave the public hearing and we'll go to.
Michael, I'm sorry, Kelly wanted to speak.
Oh, I don't see her on
Yeah,
this.
I'm sorry, my raise hand button isn't available, so I was just waving for a
Thank you,
second.
Kelly. Well,
I just had a question for Sasha. And I understand we have to do this protocol to get this the funds from CDE, but just in general, if we wanted to operate more of these state preschool programs, how do we go about demonstrating the need for that at the state level and obtaining more funds for that? I'm concerned that there is a general lack of accessibility and affordability for early child care education. And I think there's a lot of families in Vacaville that could use more preschool programs. So I think three right now is great, but I'd like to see more, and I don't know how generally we can go about looking at that.
Yeah, so this is actually one of my, again, I said my favorite part of my job, but we do what we did originally to get the 3 is so that we have that data, we know what information they require at CDE when these grants come available, and that is typically information that's provided by the local child care planning council, and so they provide that data, and we have historically in Vacaville had numbers that indicate we are in need of additional affordable preschool slots, and so really it's a waiting game, but I'm excited with a lot of the legislation and a lot of the talk that's happening with early learning that there will be additional opportunities. So when a grant opportunity rolls around, we are all on all of those management bulletins and get that information right away, and we'll just be primed and ready to apply for those additional funds. And we absolutely have and track the data continually to be able to provide to show the need. So I do think that we would be in good contenders if additional grant dollars become available. I will say the one thing that we have to get creative around, and we have so far, but it'll be ongoing conversation, is just the space issue. Where will we locate the classrooms? But that's also something that we've done some work around. So yes, I agree with you. It is a need, and we are tracking that data, and we'll watch closely for those grant opportunities.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Teresa, I understand there's a hand up.
Lori Kelly.
Okay, Lori, we'll take a second because sometimes it takes a little bit of time. Okay, Lori, can you unmute yourself? Can I unmute you? Okay, Lori, you're muted. Ken, can we unmute her, or she can just unmute herself? There we go.
I'm so sorry, guys. I did not mean to raise my hand. I bumped it.
Sorry, you have to talk now.
My child is 5. I appreciate everything that you guys are doing, and I will. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, now we'll move to superintendent's comments and correspondence.
Hello, thank you. Okay. So, Good evening, everybody, and once again, welcome to our new board members, and congratulations, Michael, board president, 4th year. So yesterday, I actually attended a webinar with both Cecil and Daniel on the Brown Act. It was presented by Lozano Smith, our law firm, and I wanted to hit some highlights from that. I think it's a lot that especially our seasoned board members already know, but I think some of them were just good reminders. They started out by talking about the board's role, and they said board has to remember to focus on the what, not the how. And they talked about ensuring clarity of roles and responsibilities. And that means between what's a board member's role, what is a staff or administrator's role. And those kind of things are really laid out in operational protocols. They said it's really important to have protocols as well as code of ethics, which we have. I've distributed all of those to the new board members. And at our workshops in February, we will spend time reviewing the protocols and discussing them. And we're also bringing in an attorney at one of those Saturday workshops. We have 2 in February to talk more about the Brown Act. And that will give the new board members the opportunity to really talk and ask questions. In the webinar, they talked about conducting business professionally, being respectful. And one of the things they said, I thought it was really nice example that they gave about avoid framing interests as directives, instead frame them as questions. And that was a nice sample they gave there as far as board members making specific requests. And then they emphasize the fact that board meetings are a meeting of the board in public to conduct school business. They are not a public meeting or a town hall. And this is something we remind ourselves occasionally, that it is essentially just a meeting that the board's having that the public is invited to watch and give comment when appropriate. But that's why we have pretty specific parameters around public comment. Then they talked about AB 992, which is the new law in Brown Act. I talked about it a couple months ago. I just wanted to go over it very quickly. The wording here is from the law, very technical, but basically it states that when a board member has social media and they're talking about school business, they can use the platform to answer questions from the public, provide information and solicit input, but they should not be engaging with other board members to discuss agency business, nor should even a single member respond to any of the social media, any statements from another board member around school business. And just to quickly break it down, this is a repeat of the presentation I gave in October, but basically you can communicate with your communities on social media, but you can't communicate directly with another board member regarding school business. You can talk about other things outside of school business. And even just saying a like or a thumbs up is considered talking about it. Again, you can answer questions from the public and provide information and solicit input, but always be careful when you're answering questions that it's not some confidential issue. And no single board member should be responding directly to any other social media regarding school business. And that includes any kind of icons or emoji on any type of platform. So just a reminder around that. I'm sure you've heard that before. And now I want to give a quick update on CASP testing. I was asked about this a few weeks ago by a board member who's actually no longer a board member, but I figured I'd give an update anyway. There's not a lot of information right now. And CASP, I think, is one of the worst acronyms that we have. We have, welcome to the world of acronyms, by the way, but CASP stands for California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress. So as you know, last spring, or as you may or may not know, the standardized testing that we have every year was actually canceled. And we did that through a waiver with the Department of Education, because this is something that we have to do per the feds. And if we don't have some kind of standardized testing, we cannot collect our federal funding. So our waiver was granted and testing was suspended. So now we're getting very close to the spring of 2021. And it's been made clear to us at this moment that we will still be expected for 2021 to administer state tests, and there won't be a waiver available. And that's right now. Things change pretty often these days. And basically the CASP testing is administered, the math and English language art is administered to grades 3 through 8 and 11. And science is 5, 8, 11th, and 12th. The 12th graders didn't test in science last year, so we will have to test them this year in the spring. Our testing window starts in March. It goes for about 2 months, and each school site develops their own testing calendar, but we have a huge window. So depending on what's going on in the sites, they can pick out a couple of weeks of testing. One thing that we don't know and that we're waiting to hear as guidance is what exactly testing will look like. We don't know if we're still in some sort of virtual learning. We may bring some test, or we may have to do it on Zoom. We're hoping that we'll just have students back in the classroom and we'll be able to do that. And the only change we do know that's happened is the state board did vote to shorten the tests, so they won't be as long. They are pretty long tests. There's no time limit to tests these days, but they do take a lot of time. So we're hoping at least they'll be a little shorter, and it'll be easier if students are still in virtual learning. So we will keep you posted over the next couple months on the guidance. We're keeping our ears open to find out what's going on, and we're still working with sites for testing calendars. We've gotten a lot of the interim practice tests that some of the teachers are using. And I want to just give some appreciation to Samantha Working, the assistant principal at Buckingham. She's also works like 1 day a week with the district as the test coordinator. So she's updating me with this information, and we're hoping as we get more information, she will come at a future board meeting and give a more in-depth presentation. And lastly, I want to give a quick COVID-related update. You are all probably aware that we now have a regional stay-at-home order effective tonight because of our ICU availability is less than 15% now. This order will stay in effect for 3 weeks. We are still an essential service, being education. Of course, for the next 2 weeks, most things will be shut down because of winter break, but tomorrow we will continue to have some people continue to come into work that need to be at work. We have special education teachers and paraprofessionals that are coming in to serve students. We have staff at our learning hubs that are coming into work to serve students, our custodians, our child nutrition workers, many of our staff in fiscal, human resources, and technology are still coming into office or coming into work because they have to be there, and we are an essential activity. Many people who can are working from home though. We are in the purple tier, as was mentioned earlier. And I think Sasha alluded to the fact that we have a memorandum of understanding in our agreement with our bargaining units, and in our agreement with our teachers union, it states that we cannot bring back more students as long as we're in the purple. We were really excited when we went into the red around late October, November, but as we got back into purple, which surprised and disappointed us, we could not continue to add more classes because that's per our agreement with the teachers union. And lastly, I think you are aware of the other recent public release regarding vaccinations. So I think that gives a lot of people some help. Solano County got almost 8,000. And I think we're all aware that the first people to get them will be the healthcare workers, long-term care workers. There's been conversations about teachers somehow being on a priority list, but we haven't heard anything definite yet. So we remain hopeful. We're just happy that there's a vaccination. And student nutrition will continue to serve meals during break. So I hope everyone knows our communications director, Elaine Kong, has is putting this out to families, I believe tomorrow, letting them know that we will be serving our weekly meal boxes to anyone 18 years or older. They don't have to show proof of being in the district. Parents can come pick it up. They don't have to bring their children with them. And those will be distributed Monday at both Wood and Jepson, Tuesday at Wood, and then the following week also Monday at Wood and Jepson and Tuesday at Wood. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Next, we're going to move on to board member comments. Would any of the board members like to make a comment?
Michael?
Sure.
Thank you. And Jane, this goes back to your COVID update with the vaccines, and who knows when we're actually going to get those. But if it would be the pleasure of the board, and maybe goes along with the topic of Michael discussing that earlier with the bringing the preschoolers back, I'd like to discuss at a future meeting or ask to be agendized, talking about vaccinations and teachers and going back and securing the MOU or changing the MOU to address that. But I don't want to get into it now because that's a conversation, but I'd like to see it agendized, hopefully at the next meeting, so we can try to get ahead of this as quick as we can. And that would be at the pleasure of the president and the board as well.
So, sorry, Mike. So January 13th, Michael and we can talk about agendizing that discussion. Okay. Will
Thank
do.
you.
You know, just so folks know, you know, when a school board member has something they would like to put on the agenda, as long as it's relevant to school business and timely, then, you know, that should happen. So look at your board bylaws and you can see that a little bit more closely. Any other board member comments? Okay, Kelly.
Hi, I just wanted to use this time to make a quick statement, and then I also had a question for Jane after that. I just wanted to say that I am honored to be a trustee of the Vacaville Unified School District and to be elected to this position whose sole advocacy is for students and children. I think this is such a trying time for everyone, and I'm impressed by the dedication of all the parents and caregivers that we have in our district. Our teachers and support staff have been invaluable and have adjusted to the new ways of teaching. I've seen this with my 5th grader and my 1st grader, and I've just been amazed by the teachers. And our site and our district administrators have guided us through these uncharted and most challenging times that we've had in public administration in years. So as a new member, I will listen actively and learn from our various stakeholders, and I will strive to understand and address the issues facing our various student populations. So I'm excited to be here, and I'm hopeful that together we will give our students the best education possible. So I just wanted to say that, and thank you very much. And then I'll just get right into it. Question for Jane about the CAS testing. I guess the current administration says there's no waivers regarding the testing, but do we have a projection on what the new administration will do? And has there been previous discussions at the board about the CAS testing? And has there been any discussions about needing waivers or wanting waivers for students at all?
No, nothing that I know of. You know, that's all the information we have right now. I'm sure come January, late January, February, we'll hear more, and I'll have Samantha probably come back and give a more in-depth presentation.
Okay, and I guess the reason I ask is I'm kind of on the fence about this. I feel like there are a lot of students who have left the schools, and they may come back, hopefully. But everybody's at different learning levels right now, and I think the CAS testing next year is going to be really difficult and unfair to some students. But at the same time, I'd like to be able to have something to gauge the learning loss that has been happening through these last months that we've been out of in-person instruction. So I'm just wondering about, the waiver process, and I'm wondering if that might be something we want to talk about further, just in terms of testing and where all of the students are at right now.
Yeah, I think we have to wait and see what the feds say if they allow for a waiver.
Okay.
So let me say, actually, I apologize for the awkwardness of the Zoom kind of thing, but normally I should have given a little more time after Jane gives her presentation. That's a great time, to ask her about that, but I didn't give it any time. Just say that this time, usually just to say, like what you did about your comment about how glad you are on the board, but it was totally appropriate because I didn't give you any time to respond. So, okay. Anybody else comment?
Yeah, I'd like to just say this real quick. In dealing with COVID-19, I lost my father today after Thanksgiving, and it hasn't been easy. And I think John can attest to this, that I love high school. I love our kids. I love seeing them excel, not only in the classroom, but also in their athletic endeavors. But we've got to be smart about this. We've got to realize that 380,000 people have died from this, my father being among those. And we've got to think, I think a lot of times we want to think with our hearts when it comes to our children. We've also got to think with our heads. So thank you.
Thank you, Cecil. Anybody else? Okay, what I would like just to say that, I just want to reiterate that it pains me, I'm sure it pains all of us, that our kids aren't at school. It's just horrible. So I just want to respond, or just say to the community that I know there are differing opinions out there, but whether you're saying you want your kids in school right now or it can't happen right now, it's horrible from everybody's perspective, from my perspective. I have a 10th grader at Wood. I think Christina talked about a 10th grader at Wood. They're suffering. They are suffering. And like Cecil said, your heart just kind of goes out and you want them to be at school. But I just want to bring the head thing back for a second. Yesterday, there were 454 cases of COVID in Solano County. Okay, 2 months ago, there were 35. So it is running rampant, almost 1,500% more than 2 months ago. So we just have to take a breath, as hard as it is. Everybody wants, I want the kids to get to school as soon as possible. And it's difficult conversations, and I think we have to keep talking about it. We can't shove it under the table and say we'll talk about it in 3 months. Maybe we have to talk about it every week. And maybe we have to say how hard it is or clash or whatever, but it's that serious. I want people to have an ability to say their truth, even if it's different than mine or ours or whatever, because it's all our kids. And my wife just reminds me, he's an 11th grader. Some father I am. I said 10th. Sorry, Aaron. So anyway, it's really hard for everybody. And I just want to acknowledge that. Okay, let's hear from our student board members. From Buckingham Collegiate Charter Academy, do we have Francisca Kubol? Is it Kubol? We'll wait for Francisca to get on.
I don't see her in the attendees.
Okay. Is there anybody else from Buckingham that's substituting for her?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, we'll wait till next time to hear from Buckingham. How about Akiko Morton from Vacaville High School? There she is.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. So to start off, December 10th, Vaca High held our first blood drive of the year and ended with about 45 donors, exceeding our expectations with the given circumstances. This was also the first time that we opened it up to the community, and members of the community were included to donate. After this student council is planning to meet once a week after school to plan and execute events, fundraisers, etc. for our school and to keep the student body involved, even though we won't be meeting every day. For Vaca High's future drive-in events, we are planning to have them once a month for 2 days, and the movies will be chosen based on the theme of the month. Vaca High is proud to announce this year's homecoming, February 26, 2020, regardless of whether there is a football game. This year's theme is homecoming with emphasis on home, because although we have been home this year, we want to unify the students and remind them that we are one big Bulldog family, and Vacaville High School will forever be our home away from home. With the current COVID-19 guidelines, we want to make sure that everyone is enjoying themselves, but at the same time staying safe. This means that we're changing up this year's homecoming just a bit. Mr. Bulldog and Homecoming Court will be pre-recorded and displayed at the drive-in homecoming on the screen. We're also creating one big class float, stationary float, for those to see in the VHS parking lot. To end the night, we'll be sending off our firework finale as the homecoming queen is crowned. To give back to our seniors, we have students working on a senior slideshow. The ad will be posted January to gather pictures and videos of the seniors throughout their high school careers. When all is gathered, there will be a senior drive-in night so they can enjoy all the memories they have shared together. And lastly, because there won't be a senior night for every sport event this year, students will be highlighting the seniors one sport per night in socially distanced setups out on the field. Thank you.
Thank you, Akiko. I'm just wondering, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you have any thoughts or comments about how your peers are doing?
We are just making the best that we can right now. We honestly have just been now adapting to what has been going on and just trying to make the best out of it.
Thank you, Akiko. Well, we support you, and let us know if there's things that we can do to help.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Rianne. Seems like Rianne's always here. Rianne West. There she comes.
Hello.
Hi, Rianne.
Hi, guys. So I just wanted to start off by saying good evening and welcome to all the new members and the returning members. So since we've last seen each other, or since we're just now meeting each other, Mostlywood has actually done quite a lot. At the beginning of December, ASB held a Fall Guys tournament, which is a video game over Zoom. Our winner was Lucas. He did absolutely amazing, and he lasted way longer in the game than I ever could have. And it was very impressive. He even got the little crown and everything. It was absolutely fun to watch. We held a gingerbread house competition to determine who was the best house decorator. All houses or structures had to be built beforehand to save time. And then the contestants had 30 minutes to decorate to their heart's content. Then they were judged on 3 categories: visible appeal, creativity, and presentation. The houses were also then posted on our Instagram page for our People's Choice Award. Our winner of both categories, because it was absolutely amazing, was Diana Liu. Her gingerbread house was beyond beautiful, and I actually made a house as well, except for mine was an apartment, and I did it for fun, not trying to win, because I'm definitely not artistically skilled. So seeing her flourish like that was really fun and awesome, and we were all very proud of her. She could have a total career in interior design if she wanted. I swear, I promise. To celebrate this last week before break and to hopefully add in some cheer during this final season, ASB has put on a Spirit Week for this whole entire week. Starting with Merry Monday, students wore festive pajamas on Zoom, and if you're like me, maybe stayed in the same pajamas, because come on, why just go to sleep in the festive ones and it's great. On Tuesday, it was the Candy Cane Day and people dressed up in red and white. Wednesday was Winter Wonderland, so we all wore blue, white, or winter clothing. It was very toasty. Today was the tacky holiday gear, and we wore ugly sweaters. And finally, tomorrow is Festive Friday, and students will be dressing up for any of their holiday traditions, whether it's from like the traditional ones, or maybe they don't celebrate one, so they're just all in their winter clothes again. It's just to really to express who you are at this time of year, and just to dress up and really represent that. And then over the course of the week, the social media team has been posting Where's Waldo pictures, but instead of Waldo, it's an elf. And the first student to find the elf and DM our social media account, they get to win a Dutch Bros gift card. And last night, we held a holiday trivia night on Zoom, where we played Kahoot and a bunch of other fun trivia games. And the winner of last night also will be receiving a gift card to Dutch Bros. And tonight, as of right now, I think they're just about to start the movie. We are hosting a movie night over Zoom, and we sent out a poll to the student body and the staff so they could all choose a movie. And The Grinch with Jim Carrey won out. It is a true classic, a good movie all year round, not just for this time of year. And if you haven't guessed it already, I was Team Grinch. I pushed that movie very hard. Not only has the student leadership programs been busy, but so have all of our teachers and our staff and our administration. The task of moving school online was extremely daunting and far from easy, but I just wanted to say congratulations to everyone. We did it. We made it through a full semester, and that is something to be really proud of. So even though there are lots we need to work on and lots of things that we need to prepare for, I just want everyone to take a minute and just give ourselves a pat on the back to say, hey, we did it, and that's good for right now. And that will be all.
Thank you, Rianne. And just so you know, any new board members, if there's any clarification or any question you have for the student board members, of course, you're welcome to ask. All right, Rianne, I'm just going to give you the same opportunity that I did to Akiko. Do you want to say anything about how people are doing?
It's kind of along the same lines. We're doing the best we can. I know it's definitely hard on our seniors, because this is the year you honestly start looking forward to as soon as you start school. But we're gonna do what we can, and we appreciate all efforts being made. And even though it's not what we want, we do understand the seriousness of it, and we'll be okay. We're a pretty resilient group of kids, so we'll make it through.
Thanks, Rianne. And we really appreciate you and the rest of ASB and the seniors. I mean, it's be easy to give up, but you're not giving up. So we really appreciate that and honor that.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't know if there's any representatives of VTA or SEIU. Is that correct? Nobody on? No? Okay.
No.
So let's move to staff reports and presentations. 18A, facilities update about tree removal. Dan Banowitz.
Good evening, board, President Kitsis and Superintendent Shemiya. I do have a small presentation to give you to talk to you about some tree removal we have at a couple of our project sites.
Dan, are you sharing? You want me to share?
No, go ahead. I thought, yeah.
Okay.
So sometimes, and quite often during our projects, we do have, we do have occasions where we need to remove trees in order to accomplish the project that we have. So I wanted to give you some information. We're going to start with the 621 South Orchard Street site. If you want to move on to the next one, Teresa. Out there, we need to remove 4 redwood trees and 1 liquid amber tree. These are pretty big trees, the redwoods are. But this is due to the Division of State Architects, the DSA requirements. The buildings that are currently on that site are non-DSA certified buildings. And our project is to add the 6 DSA certified classrooms out there. The requirement means that that they have is that those buildings cannot be within 25 feet of any existing non-DSA certified buildings. So in order to do that, these classrooms need to be closer to Azalea Street, and they would, and the trees would be within the footprint of those new classrooms. We looked at other locations for the classrooms on that site, but the site is too small for that. There is no place else to put these buildings. And we will typically we replace more trees than we take out, but in this case, again, with this site being so small, that we will be planting a new tree. It'll be a shade producing tree for the future, but it will not be a redwood tree. So next slide. On this, if you click it again, sorry, I thought I would be controlling this. You can see the red dots. That is the current location of the trees that are in question that we're looking to remove. The green one is a redwood tree that will be staying, and the blue is the location of the blue is where the location of the new tree will be planted. And we may put a few others in there. We're still working on the landscape plan, but as far as that goes, if you look, the shaded buildings, the gray are the actual buildings that are on site. You have the multi-purpose room, what was used to be called the Fellowship Hall, and then you have the church building. So that is what I say. It's a small site. There's really no other space for this. This is in the same location that the preschool building used to be for the Bethany Lutheran Church. So it's in the same location, and that's how we can fit it there. Next slide. This is the actual, you can see the inside that red box, there's the black dots, those black dots, and then they have circles around those. Those are the locations of the trees. And you can see where in the dark gray shaded, that's the old preschool buildings where that used to sit. And that's why those trees were able to exist. Next slide. I have some pictures. These are the pictures of the trees in question there, and those along Azalea. Next slide. And then we have, that's a look from the other side of the street. There's the one large redwood there, and then on the other side of the fence, you can see two. It's actually split into two, but it's one tree back behind that fence. Next slide. The good news is that we have a local wood miller. It's actually Golden State Portable Milling. Kyle Dowd has agreed to mill the wood, mill this redwood, and cut it down to our size that we're requesting. The wood will be donated to our high school wood shops to be used by our students to create their projects. The miller, the way it works is the miller, he will mill the wood. He'll keep a portion of it that covers his cost, and the rest will all be brought to the schools. We will have, with these size trees, we will have more wood than we can store. So it's a great thing for our wood shops. And I know speaking to the wood shop teachers, asking them what sizes they would prefer, they're very excited about this opportunity. So the wood will not be going to waste. Next slide. The next thing is at 100 Mcclellan Street, the new Buckingham Charter High School location. We're going to be removing 7 trees total, 4 ash, 2 blue gum eucalyptus, and 1 pine. 6 of the trees will be removed due to the reconfiguration of the parking lot and the location of the new marquee sign. And then 1 tree will be removed that's on the campus because it's going to be in the footprint of the new multi-purpose room and modular classrooms. Next slide. You can see the X's with the circles. That's on the Monte Vista side. In the parking lot, that is the location where the four of the trees will be removed. Next. And then you have the 2 eucalyptus are the X's that are almost right next to each other down on the left side, the 2 trees. And then the 1 X on the right hand towards the top is a pine tree that will be in the footprint of the new MP room and modular classrooms. Next slide. So I've put in some pictures. So these are the two along Monte Vista in the parking lot. Next. These are two others in the parking lot, and I'll kind of show you why we're going to be reconfiguring this. Next slide. That's the one pine tree, the one that's circled in the back. Okay, next. And those are the two eucalyptus trees that used to be where the they stand where the old district office used to be. Next. Okay, so during the site work portion of the project, we will be planting, in replacement 20 new trees. 9 new trees to be added in the parking lot loop. 5 be added to the fence line between the parking lot and the school. 5 new trees will be added to the new quad area, and 1 tree will be added to the south end of the new modular science classrooms. So we'll be replacing a lot more trees than we'll be removing at this site because we have that opportunity in space. Next slide. This is where it kind of points out where the new trees will be. And on the top side, you can see where we will be reconfiguring those parking lot islands. And that's why the ones that were in the current islands need to be removed. But we'll be adding a lot more along the way as we redo this whole parking lot and the quad area of the campus. Next slide. This kind of points out where all the new trees will be going. Next. Again, this is towards the south side of the campus on the loop. And it just shows again where we're putting some, adding some of these trees. And next. There you go. Any questions?
I'd like to, Dan, I'd like to invite public comment first. There are a few people, or there's at least one person that wanted to talk about the trees. So maybe we can get her comment and then we can kind of go on with questions.
Sure.
So that I can't remember who that was, but I'm sure you're there. Is she still there, Teresa? You're on mute, Teresa.
Yeah, I'm trying to unmute my mouse. Okay, yeah, we have 3 speakers, Mr. Kitsis. First one that I have was Kelly Harper. That was from earlier.
Yes. Okay, Kelly, you're up.
Hi there. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right. Welcome to the new board members. This is my first time I've ever been to a school board meeting, and it's been interesting. I got a notice on my front porch a couple days ago. I live on Azalea, and there are the 4 redwood trees that Dan was talking about. I'm just wondering if there's a way that we can save these trees. These are not ordinary trees. I was looking at the project on Mcclellan Street, and I can see what some of those trees may have been, in the way. But these trees, these redwood trees on Azalea are, they're majestic. And to take those out would be a real shame. And I'm wondering if there's a way that maybe we can build around the trees. In a lot of places in California, redwood trees are protected. So I'm not sure why they're not protected here in Vacaville. And the other thing is, I noticed when I've been to cities like Danville and Alamo, they will build around the trees. I've noticed for a long time here in Vacaville that Vacaville likes to rip out trees. There were 300-year-old trees on Nut Tree and Elmira years ago that were ripped out. And if there's a way to save these trees, maybe make the buildings a little bit smaller, or have a different architect come in that could work around the trees, I think a lot of people really enjoy those trees. So I don't want to ramble, but I've never done this before, and I feel really passionate about this. So I guess that's it.
Good job, Kelly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, who's next?
Next, we have Stacy Kendrick.
Okay, Stacy.
Good evening. My name is Stacy Kendrick, and I live on South Orchard Avenue, about a block up towards Buck Avenue from Alamo School. And my children were students there, and my granddaughter is currently an Alamo Eagle. And I fully support educating our students in a wholesome way. I really hope that we can get them back in the classroom as soon as possible. However, I've just received this message about the new modular classrooms and the tree removal, and that prompted me to come to this meeting tonight. Given the new residential development on Fruitvale and the 3-story apartments that are going to be built near Fire Station 71, I'm very concerned about the traffic on South Orchard. So I have a couple of questions. What are the plans for additional parking and traffic remediation for the increase in students at Alamo School in these new 6 modular classrooms? And what is the date for the tree removal? The reason I'm concerned about the date is because I love the visitors to my yard that are hummingbirds that live in those trees. And this is the worst possible time of the year to kick them out of their homes. So I don't want to see the trees go, but I understand if they have to go, they're going to go, but I don't know when. And I'm really concerned about the traffic and the parking situation. So if you could fill me in on that, I'd really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tracy. I'm sure Dan will talk about that.
Okay. And let's see, hold on, sorry. Next speaker would be Tessa Threets.
Okay, Tessa, you're on. Looks like she's on. Tessa, you're muted. Can you unmute? Can we unmute her?
I actually didn't have anything to say.
Oh, there you go. Nothing to say, did you say?
Nothing to say. Nothing
Okay,
to say. I'm
Tessa.
just listening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and Jamie Smith.
Okay, Jamie, you're up.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to say thank you again for all of your guys' work. And all of you included. Jane, I call you out. I thank you so much. The communication has been amazing from parents to teachers to principals, and not talking about the wishing to go, and just working on the work itself and the schools. Our kids go to a couple different schools here, and they're both have just done amazing with what they've come up with. So I want to say thank you to all that and what goes on. But to the trees, I do live in the same neighborhood as Kelly, I think, who spoke on the trees, and with the wildlife in Vacaville and the things that are in this town, to the members that are in this town as community people, it is so hard to watch go when there's development like this. And I like to attend meetings like this because I like to hear that firsthand of when that's happening, so that we do have a say and we can say, again, the Fruitvale situation with that land out there going, these trees now here just for some space. I think we should look at some of the fire issues that have happened and whether or not those help block fire. I was in a meeting recently with Safety Day in Leadership, and they talked about some of the things that are now just so built out of plastic. Everything we have in our house is plastic, and it burns quicker. And one of the things is natural foliage and things that are native to these lands. So I think that, like I said, I know you can't stop things that are already in progress with measuring monies and things like that, but I just wanted you to know that I do agree. I don't agree with taking those out either. And if we could find a way to work with maybe or one loss, not so many, or an alternative to that, I think that's a great idea. And thank you again.
Thank you, Jamie. Any more, Teresa?
No more.
Okay, thank you. Well, Dan, do you want to answer that one about the traffic, or you want to go straight to board? Go
Sure,
ahead.
sure. I can address that. You know, with the district purchasing the site, it's actually gonna, you know, when it comes to the school site, the Alamo school site traffic and parking, we're gonna be able to help that out quite a bit. Now we own both the parking lots that are on that site. In the past, our parents could not use those parking lots for pickup or drop off. So all the traffic was stuck onto on Orchard, as they were not able to get off of Orchard for any reason. We own those parking lots now, and we'll be able to use those for pickup and drop off. So I think we're going to actually help that situation. And I know, speaking to a couple of the other neighbors that had called after receiving the notice, they were happy to hear that those parking lots will be used. The main parking lot that is separated by a gate will continue to be separated, because we don't want traffic, people just cutting through there to get to Azalea from Orchard. But you know, I think, and the whole thing about traffic during the school pickup and drop off and parking, those are the only times I can talk about, and I think we're going to help that situation.
Okay. Any board members have any questions of Dan?
Yes, I have one. I'd like to ask Dan. Dan, you mentioned the 2 existing buildings on that site.
Yes, sir.
What are to become of those?
Well, we have the multi-purpose room. Right now, we already have our nursing department, preschool assessment team, and some other office space that we have in there operating right now. The rest of the time, I mean, we are, with our district, we're searching for conference space, or you know, for some of our district meetings. And so that fellowship hall, that multi-purpose room, will be a big use for us as far as that goes, because one of the conference rooms that we typically used to use at the 100 Mcclellan Street is now a classroom again for Buckingham High. So you know, we're going to be looking at that. The rounder building, what was the sanctuary building, that has to needs a little bit of work to change things around, but that's going to be a good space for meetings and events, for especially like performances for elementary schools, with a little stage that's in there, those type of things. We've got a lot of ideas on how we can use these buildings, but we have to remember, one of the agreements that we made purchasing this site was that we leased back the sanctuary building and part of that fellowship hall, that MP room, back to the Bethany Lutheran Church for 1 year. So they're going to continue to use that as a church site for 1 year. So that was kind of an agreement on getting the price that we paid for the site.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Dan, you know, it's interesting. I thought about this a lot this week. You know, I'm looking at the picture that you sent, and thank you for that. Besides the trees being really, like, you know, really majestic trees, that whole neighborhood's going to change. The look of that neighborhood is going to completely change. Those are massive trees, and they really, you know, people are used to seeing them and looking at them a certain way. So one thing I really appreciate, again, other new board members, is that what we try and do is we try to have presentations, and then we don't vote on things that night. Usually, if it's anything important, we wait till the next meeting or another meeting so you can kind of digest and think about it, so you're not forced to, you know, we're not forced to just vote on it. So one thing I would really like to do is, I would really like, Dan, if we could make a time, I'd like to go, if anybody else could go down there with you and kind of walk the site and just kind of get a sense of what it all means.
Absolutely. I'm sure we can set up a time or 2 or 3, whatever it needs. You know, I'm not going anywhere next week, so you know, we can do that, or, you know, anytime before the next board meeting, I'd be happy to tour around, and I think, you know, that would be a good idea, because, you know, I know this, you know, is you know, as much as this is not the greatest solution, with that site, other than demolishing other buildings, it's the only way we're going to fit these classrooms in. So it's unfortunate, but I'd be happy to meet with everybody, whoever would be willing to, so we can send out some invitations, some dates and times, and we'd be happy to work that out.
Jane, do you want to kind of however you want to work that out with Dan and with everybody to contact you or whatever?
Absolutely. Dan and I will talk, and Teresa, and maybe we'll set up like 2 or 3 choices. And I think, Dan, I think we could do it over the next 2 weeks. We just meet there and look around.
Thanks.
And actually, it would be nice for the new board members. We could actually bring them into the building and show them everything. So yeah, we'll arrange that. We'll talk tomorrow, Dan. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, before we do action items, let's take a 5-minute break. Okay, let's try to keep to it. It's 8:36. Let's see if we can start at 8:41 again. And you can turn off your cameras if you want during that time. Board of Education initial proposal for negotiations with VTA. Are there any questions about that? Okay, so it's requested the board approve the initial proposal to open negotiations. Do I have a motion? Are you all muted? You have to unmute yourselves, I think. Can you unmute? Why are you pointing to me?
Okay, hold on.
There we go.
Let me click on there. Okay. I'm just gonna unmute. I'm gonna put ask to unmute on all of you for right now, because I don't know what I'm doing. Okay.
I move for it.
So
And I'll second it.
Well, can I tell you? Your faces all look very panicky there. I'm just letting you know.
Okay.
Okay, we got a motion in a second.
So it's Mr. Santillan and Mr. Jansen, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Jansen, we're going to start with you now in this next round, okay? So I'll start with you for your vote, please.
Yes.
Ms. Welsh,
Yes.
Mr. Santillan,
Yes.
Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Mrs. Dally,
Yes.
and Mr. Kitsis.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, 19B, same thing with the request is that the board approve the initial proposal to open negotiations for 2020 to 22 collective bargaining with the district and SEIU. A motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Kelly and Shelley?
And Dally, okay. Mr. Jansen, your vote, please. Thank you. That's yes. Ms. Welsh,
Yes.
Santillan,
Yes.
Mr. Conley,
Yep.
Mrs. Dally,
Yes.
and Mr. Kitsis.
Yes. Okay, so I'm seeing that Kelly is saying that the host is not allowing participants to unmute themselves, Kelly Burks. So if you could unmute Kelly Burks.
Jane too.
Oh.
Jane too.
And if you can unmute Jane, it will hold her hostage. Okay, Jane is unmuted.
Michael, if I mute
There.
myself, will I be able to go back and unmute? Because I muted myself and then I wasn't be able to go back.
I don't know. So maybe you should just stay unmuted.
Okay.
I thought you were going to ask like a philosophical question. If I'm muted, do I actually exist?
Kelly Burke says she can't start her video.
If we had the ability to do it before, how come we can't now?
Yes.
The reason is that we stopped recording when we went on a break. So let me put back the things we had in place before.
Okay, Ken.
Thank you.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay.
Okay, Kelly, you should be able to start your video now. There you are, Kelly.
That worked. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, we're back to the way we were before.
Thank you, Ken. You're actually doing an awesome job.
Michael, you
Yes, Jane.
doing a great job. I just
Okay.
wanted to tell you, you're
Thank
doing a great job.
Okay, so I think are we on the roll call for the SEIU?
Did we do the roll call for SEIU? Let's just do it again. Mr. Jansen,
Yes.
Ms. Welsh, Mr. Santillan,
Yes.
Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Mrs. Dally,
Yes.
Mr. Kitsis.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, Kelly Burks, Assistant Superintendent of Business Administrative Services, is going to present the first interim report.
Okay, let me get that up. Okay.
All right, well, good evening, Board President Kitsis, members of the board, and a special welcome to the new board members and Superintendent Shemia. I'm here this evening to present the first interim budget report and the budget overview for parents reports. Next slide. So there are two separate agenda items I'm presenting together in this presentation. Items 19C is the first interim budget, and then 19D is the budget overview for parent reports for Vacaville and the 3 dependent charters. So I will cover both of those things during this one presentation. And I also understand that Superintendent Shemia met with the 3 new board members earlier this month and went over the first interim budget in quite a bit of detail. So this evening I will review the big picture adjustments and explain those differences from the 45-day revised budget and talk about enrollment, reserves, and some next steps. Next slide. So here's the budget cycle. It's the beginning in January with the governor's proposal. He'll propose his 21-22 fiscal year budget. He is constitutionally required to release it by January 10th. The Legislative Analyst's Office, known as the LAO, is California's legislative nonpartisan fiscal and policy advisor. They released their fiscal outlook report in November last month, and then the governor bases his budget proposal on those assumptions and projections. Then in February, we're in the middle of budget development. for the following year based on what those recommendations were from the governor, and the second interim budget update as well. In March, we'll bring that second interim report to you for your review, and that's the budget through January 31st. In April, both HR and fiscal are working on budget development and meeting with sites on their site budgets for 21-22. And then in May, the governor revises his January budget proposal. In June, the legislature and the governor come to an agreement, and they have to do that by June 30th. And then the 21-22 State Budget Act is approved. And then we also at the local level will bring you our budget for approval as well. And in July, we're working on closing the previous year's books. It's also one of my favorite things to do. I love closing. It's very satisfying just to see how everything shakes out. And then in August, there are significant changes between the governor's May revise like there was this year. Then we would bring a 45-day revised budget for your consideration, and that's in mid-August. In September, we'll bring you the prior year unaudited actuals, which is that closing of the books from the prior year. Then October and November, we're working on first interim budget, and then also the prior year's independent auditors requests, because they didn't come on site this year, but we did it virtually, and we were able to pull all those requests needed for their audit report, which you will be seeing next month's budget board meeting. So then in December, where we are now, we're working on the first interim presentation tonight, and that's an updated budget through October 31st. Next slide. So the local funding formula, or LCFF is commonly referred to, is estimated at 106 million, which is a little bit of a decrease from the 45-day revised budget. And the reason that there is a decrease was because the unduplicated pupil percentage, which is normally around 45%, was projected at 39%, which was based on enrollment and unduplicated counts as of the first Wednesday in October. And if you, for those members that were here in the beginning of the school year, we were down as low as 22%. Staff worked really hard reaching out to families and completing the free and reduced meal applications. So now we're down, the $200,000 still, but it could have been as much as $4 million. So I really appreciate all the hard work of the staff reaching out to those families. And also some more good news, we are up to actually 41.5% as of December. So we'll bring that revision to you for second interim. Then for federal revenues, they've increased by only 43,000 just due to some unspent federal grants as we were closing the books. State revenues, they increased the most by that $2 million. Our state teachers retirement system and the public employees retirement system, known as PERS and STIRS, are not fully funded at the state level. So we're required to, at the local level, to book our portion of the unfunded liability. When we close our books every year, we update the budget for the new year based on those actual figures. And this is just, it's an accounting entry. It's just called the PERS and STIRS on behalf entry. And on behalf means on behalf of the state. So our portion increased by $1.7 million. It's just a simple in and out entry in this category of state revenues, as well as the benefit category in expenditures. So they're offset. We also added 2 bus grants, which are really exciting. The amount of those grants were $764,000, and that's to purchase 3 electric buses. We received $53,000 more in state special education mental health funds. And then both the restricted and unrestricted lottery amounts were lowered from the 45-day revised budget to first interim. So now we're going to receive 150 per ADA, or average daily attendance. Sorry, I'll try to catch myself on the acronyms. And the restricted is at 49. Then for our local funds, they increased by 280,000. We qualify for tier 2 E-rate funds. So we added those at first interim, and that's 162,000. And then we also received a local bus grant from Yolo Solano Air Quality District for 117,000 to purchase the electric buses. Next slide, please. So our local control funds are the largest revenue stream in the general fund. They consist of property taxes, funding from the state, and a temporary tax through the Education Protection Account via Proposition 30 and extended by Proposition 55. Normally, this revenue is closer to 83% of our general fund revenues, but we do have those $8.3 million in one-time federal funds in our budget, so it's bringing that percentage down. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So expenditures, our certificated salaries have decreased by 1.4, which does seem like a lot, but that was due to some cleanup that Human Resources worked on, as well as we won't be filling those positions for this year, so we've gone ahead and closed those and removed them from the budget. We also lowered substitute costs, which is actually the bulk of that, and then some extra duty hours because we have been in distance learning. We haven't been running those extracurricular activities due to the COVID-19 restrictions. Then when you look at classified salaries, they've also decreased for the same reasons I just reviewed with certificated. And then for employee benefits, they actually increase, but again, it goes back to that offset for that PERS and STIRS on behalf entry. And then for books and supplies, they increased by 2.5 million, and the majority is the coronavirus relief funds in the amount of $2 million that was budgeted for the sites to use as well as the district. And then also we had the site planned carryover that sites have every year when we close the books that we add at first interim, and that was about 500,000. Then for services and other operating expenditures, we've decreased by about 590,000. We moved 500,000 of those coronavirus relief funds just up to the supplies category. So that's just a move from one area to another. And then we also lowered the conference and travel budget because we're not doing that. So we reduced that by another $137,000. Capital outlay, which is items that are over $15,000, we increased those by 881,000. And the majority of the cost was for those electric buses that we're purchasing because those are capital expenditures. And then we added some servers for technology due to distance learning, and we used those coronavirus relief funds to make those purchases. Then for other outgo and indirect costs, we decreased those by 15,000, and that's just due to some of the changes for the fundings that we charge those resources to. And for transfers out, there's a large swing here of $1.2 million, and that's because we had to lower Kimmy's charter average daily attendance. And I'll go into more detail about that when I come to Kimmy. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So salaries and benefits are at 78%. This percentage is also a little bit lower than normal. We're usually closer to 83 to 85% of total expenditures. But again, because of those one-time federal coronavirus relief funds, it's skewing the picture a little bit. Most of those funds are budgeted in the supplies and services categories. So it's bringing that overall salaries and benefits down. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So general fund summaries. So this, when you look at that third line, this is kind of the line we like to highlight on this slide. That's the increase or the decrease of the fund balance. So that's, are we living within our revenues for the current year, or are we deficit spending? And as you can see by this, we are deficit spending, but we typically have about $3 million or so in planned carryover that we do have to budget, but typically falls out at the end of the year. We also have grants that are funded across multi-years, and so those don't always get spent in the current year either. So if you look at line 5 there, that ending fund balance, that's another one we highlight on this slide. Below, the more detail there under the components of ending fund balance show where we have actually assigned the balance. So we're required to have a 3% reserve for economic uncertainties. And then we have a board policy that says we also would like to have an additional 5% reserve. And then we have some additional assignments for the future years that are not in the budget, but we've set aside because we're saving up for those projects. So our overall reserves are at 15.68%. And the Government Finance Officers Association recommends for unified school districts that we should be around 17%, which is about 2 months worth of expenditures. And we'll go into revenues and reserves a little bit later on as well. Next slide, please. So these are the planning factors that we use when we're building our multi-year projections. These are from School Services of California, as well as we use some from the State Department of Finance, the Legislative Analyst's Office, and the best practices and recommendations from the Business and Administrative Steering Committee common message. So it's a message they put out to all school districts in California. It's created by the 58 county office directors and chief business officials in California to provide information and guidance to school districts and charters for developing their budgets. We use historical trends as well when considering the increases for health and welfare costs and special education excess costs. I also want to bring to your attention on this slide the STRS and PERS rates on the first two lines there. Currently, the state is buying down the STRS rate for this year and next, but then it will return to the STRS board approved rate of 18.1% for 22-23. So STRS was historically from 1986 to 2013 had been at 8.25%. And we've seen increased rate climbs to where they are today because of that unfunded liability that wasn't addressed during those years. So that's why we're seeing those large rate increases now. And then you can see PERS as well is at 26.3. Next slide. So attendance. So our largest general fund revenue is our LCFF revenue, which is based on the number of students we serve and the percentage of unduplicated students, which are the students who qualify for free and reduced meals, who are English learners or foster youth. So the actual enrollment chart there on the left or right, depending on if you're looking at or I guess the left. So that's our actual enrollment, which is based off of our daily average attendance or ADA, shows that we're down 494 students. 133 of those students are from the change that we made from the Country High school site that we used to have that has now moved to the KIMI work readiness pathway of KIMI charter. The other 361 students are students that we truly have lost due to COVID-19. So we've been a district that's been increasing our enrollment over the last 4 years. So this is really difficult to lose that growth over the last 4 years in one single year. So then if you look to the chart on the right, that's our funded enrollment and ADA chart. And you can see where we will actually be funded for 2021 based on our period 2 ADA or average attendance from 1920. So that was written into the Budget Act. School districts always have the option to be funded on the prior year or the current year, whichever is higher. But for 21-22, they also said that we could use the 1920 ADA levels to use because they know that most school districts have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. But then in 22-23, we have to realize the loss if the students still have not returned at that point. And that's what we have built our budget based on. Of course, we're very hopeful that they will return and that we all will be able to return to in-person learning. Next slide, please. So this is our multi-year projection. The revenues are based on those funded ADA figures from the previous slide. You'll notice a drop in both the revenues and the expenditures from 2021 to 22 or 21-22. And that's because we've removed those one-time coronavirus relief funds, as well as the one-time bus grants and the purchases of those buses. I'd also like to bring to your attention the increase-decrease line again on this slide as well. You can see that we are spending more in all 3 years than we have revenue coming in. However, again, we typically have that carryover that is planned, or again, those grants that carry over from year to year. So for example, all the Title I through Title IV programs run on a 27-month cycle. And so those are spread out throughout those years. And then the sites also have planned carryover for future projects or site improvements that they save up for. We are able to meet our 3% minimum reserve for economic uncertainties. But in that third year out, we're not able to meet the 5% board require reserve in 22-23. We can only assign 2.3%. And so our reserves are decreasing every year because of the deficit spending and the attendance rates. But a lot can change, and especially this year and during these times. So when we get to 22-23, it could look very different. I always try to remind whoever I'm speaking with that multi-years are exactly right and precisely wrong. They're based on the assumptions and what we know right now, But like I said, when the governor releases his budget in January, things can look very different. But overall, our reserves will drop from the 15.68% to 5.4 by that third year based on these assumptions. Next slide, please. So this is an optional scenario that I ran just to show if our enrollment does come back to the 1920 levels, this is what our budget would look like. We still can't meet that 5% board reserve in 22-23. We can only do 3.7, but it does look better. And the other thing that's also in here is flat funding and zero COLA. And so those could change. The economy is bouncing back a little quicker than what they had originally projected. So we could end up seeing a COLA in those future years. Next slide. So these are our other funds that are outside what we refer to as the general fund, which is Fund 01. So Fund 08 is actually a new fund, and it's for our student body activities, our Associated Student Body or ASB accounts. So we've transferred some of the money at first interim for those secondary sites. They used to live in a fund called Fund 95, which we never reported on, but now they're in Fund 08. It was a change due to a standards board recommendation. So you will see this fund on the slide going forward, and we'll have some changes and additional activity at second interim. And I also just noticed there's a typo. Those expenditures should match the revenue. It should be a 7, not an 8 there, so I apologize for that. It nets to 0. And then Fund 11 is our adult education program. They have a large reserve that they've been spending down purposely year over year. So that's why they are deficit spending, but that's on purpose, it's intentional. We can only keep 60% of our reserves going forward, so they're working on spending those down. And then Fund 12 is our state preschool program. We have 2 classrooms at Fairmont and then 1 at Markham. And this is the program that Ms. Vacaville was speaking about earlier this evening. So that's that state preschool program. And then Fund 13 is our student nutrition program, and they're funded based on the meals that are served. They normally have an annual budget of around $4.5 million, but this year they just keep breaking records. We've been serving so many meals. We've broke records and made over $1 million over the last 2 months, each month. And it's because of those 5-day meal boxes. We're able to serve the breakfast with the lunch. So we've seen some increased activity there. And then we've also been serving, over the Thanksgiving break, and then the 2 weeks at Christmas, we will as well. So those additional revenues are coming in, and we will invest them back in the program. And then Fund 21 and 22 are the Measure A funds, those bond funds. We are required to fully budget them every year now. That's a new change with 2021. Before we could let them fall to the bottom line, but we cannot do that anymore. We are not going to spend the $81 million this year, but rather over the next 3 years. Next slide, please. And Fund 25 is the developer fees. These are also required to be fully accounted for in our expenditures now, not fall to the bottom line anymore. So these are the developer fees that we collect. We also use some of these funds to purchase the property at 621 Orchard, and we will update those revenues at second interim as well. And then Fund 40 and 41 is the fund that we make our certificate of participation payments out of for the Educational Services Center. And then these are paid for with the redevelopment agency funds, which are collected through the county. And then Fund 51 is also handled directly actually by the county. And these are bond payments that the revenue is collected from the taxes. Solano County collects the taxes and also directly makes the bond payments for us. And then that activity is recorded here in this fund. And then Fund 71 are the other post-employment benefits, which are deposited into these funds. And then we make a contribution to an outside trust, and that's to help fund our unfunded retirement liability. And then Fund 73 is some scholarship funds. And these are scholarships for students. I found some additional records when I was cleaning up some files when we were reorganizing. So I hope to have some more information for you on that as well at second interim. Next slide, please. So now this is the part about the budget overview for parents, which is separate from first interim. It's a requirement that goes along with the LCAP as well as the learning continuity plan, which is our LCAP for this year, the LCAP, not LCAP that we affectionately refer to it as. So this is Vacaville's, and so this is the parent overview. School districts receive funds from different sources, as we reviewed in some detail tonight. And so we're required to reflect this here in that overview for parents. We want to highlight the unduplicated students again, which are those foster youth, English learners, and low-income students, are the students that generate that supplemental grant that you see on the slide there. Next slide. So this chart provides a quick summary of how much Vacaville plans to spend on our planned actions and services that are written into the Learning Continuity Plan for 2021. And we plan on spending those to increase or improve services for our high needs students. Next slide. This is a recap of how we spent our funds in 1920 for those high needs students. And it compares what we had budgeted in the LCAP, or, the original LCAP, the local accountability plan for actions and services that contributed to increasing or improving services for those high needs students, compared to what we actually spent on those actions and services. And we actually ended up spending a little bit more than we were required to. Next slide. So now I'll review Buckingham's budget, and I'm going to switch gears and cover our 3 dependent charters for first interim. So this is Buckingham's actual enrollment and average daily attendance on the left. They are down 31 students from last year, and this is a direct impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Then if you look at the funded enrollment and ADA chart, you can see that they will be funded at the 2021 year based on their 1920 PTU attendance, just like we will be at the district. Charter schools don't normally have that option like school districts do. Charter schools are usually funded on their current year only. They don't get to choose. So then for 21-22, they don't have that same allowance where they can refer back to 1920 like we can for the district. They will, if they have at that time still a loss in students, we will have to recognize those. And that's what we have based their multi-year projection on. Next slide. So we based them on those projections that we just spoke about and those reductions in those revenues in 21-22, in addition to also removing their one-time federal revenue and expenditures, because each of the charters were also awarded the coronavirus relief funds. And they are projected to deficit spend all 3 years. Like the district, they also have planned carryover that tends to fall to the bottom line when we close the books. The 3rd year out looks a little worrisome, but I have a feeling they'll get there. They're on a new campus. We've already talked about putting together a recruitment plan to promote the new campus and bringing students into Buckingham in the future. And I have no doubt that they will under the amazing leadership of Principal Eads. Next slide. So here's the breakout of their revenues and their expenditures. I'm sorry, this is just the revenues. And this supplemental grant also, you can see that their unduplicated count is lower than the districts. They're at 18.62%, but that's how they generate those $178,000 there in the supplemental grant. Next slide. So here's their planned spending on actions and services related to their learning continuity plan for 2021. And it is all also planned to be spent on improving service for those high needs students. Next slide. Then this chart compares what they budgeted for last year, 1920, in comparison to what they actually spent on those actions and services. They didn't spend it all. They don't lose those funds. They do carry over. And then the reason I don't think they spent it is just because of closing campuses in March. And then they might have just also come in under budget on some items as well. Next slide. So here's Fairmont. This is Fairmont's enrollment. Their actual enrollment and average ADA chart shows they're down 26 students. This is a direct impact of COVID-19. And they've lost most of them at the lower grade levels, the TK students mostly. If you then look at the funded enrollment in ADA, you can see that they will be funded also on the prior year. Normally, again, they don't get that option as a charter, but they have an exception in the Budget Act this year. Next slide. And then we base their multi-year on those attendance projections. And we've also removed their federal one-time funds, which is why there's a drop in that second year. They're projected to deficit spend in the 2 out years, not this current year. They also have planned carryover that tends to fall to the bottom line, and they have really healthy reserves. They're in a really good position financially. And Principal Moffitt has some plans for some one-time expenditures, which might change this picture a little bit for second interim, but those are just one-time expenditures. Next slide. So here is their overview. They generate $672,000 in supplemental grants. They have a higher unduplicated pupil count. They're at about 70% of their total student population. Next slide. Here's their planned spending and actions for 2021 and their LCAP, not LCAP. And they are again planning on spending 100% of these funds on improving services for high needs students. Next slide. This is their 1920 actuals compared to budget. They also spent a little bit more than what was required. Again, they have a really high percentage. They're at about 70%, so they have lots of students to serve. So they generally don't have a problem meeting this requirement. Next slide. So now I'll move on to Kimmy Charter. They're the one only graph that actually has an upward trend there on their ADA and enrollment. Part of Senate Bill 820, which was the TRAILO bill language for the 2021 Budget Act. In the bill, they wrote in specific language to provide growth funding for districts and charters who were in a situation where they were actually increasing their enrollment. However, they wrote in a specific exclusion for non-classroom based charters, which Kimmy is. And so they actually are not able to recognize the growth that they actually have this year. And so because of that, they are actually going to have to use Kimmy's last year's ADA for their funded ADA. So their actual enrollment and average daily attendance chart shows they've increased by 115 students because of adding the Kimmy Work Readiness Pathway, which was formerly the students from Country High under the district. So if you look at that funded enrollment and ADA chart, you will see that they'll be funded at the lower 175 ADA, which is their 1920 P2 ADA. And that again is because of that exclusion of the growth funding. So the district will claim the old Country High ADA, which is 133 ADA, and it generates approximately $1.4 million in revenue. And then we will have to make a contribution to Kimmy to cover their budget costs due to their increased enrollment. And that contribution showed on that slide earlier I was talking about the expenditures. So you can see that reflected in their multi-year on the next slide. Next slide, please. So Kimmy also received some one-time federal and state coronavirus relief funds. They only had about $27,000 because again, it was based on that prior year's attendance. And so we've removed those revenues from that out year. Their LCFF revenues, lottery funding calculations, mandated block grants, and a few others are based on that ADA attendance. So those will increase for 2021 when they can actually recognize the growth that they've seen at their charter. So currently we are making a contribution of $1.5 million in this year's budget. And then to balance their budget, we've made that contribution. And then they're also using their beginning fund balance as well as the ending in the third year there. They're only meeting that 3% reserve for economic uncertainty because we've only transferred what they need to meet that minimum requirement. Next slide. So here's Kimmy's budget overview. They're at 33% for their unduplicated students. So they generate that $245,000 that's based on that for those supplemental grants. And then also you'll notice that the local revenue here is so large, but again, that's because of the contribution from the district and they aren't able to claim their own ADA. Next slide. So they budgeted their full $27,000 for planned actions and services in their LCAP, not LCAP, to spend on high needs students. Next slide. For 1920, they originally planned on using some outside contracted services for students, but instead they were able to utilize district site staff and supports, which actually resulted in a cost savings. Next slide. So here's the reserves. This information is shared by School Services of California. We only have comparable data through 1819 at this point. And for unified school districts, most districts across California had an average of about 17.26%. We personally ended 1819 with a fund balance of 13.54, so we were under the average that year. And the Government Finance Officers Association recommends that minimum, again, of that 17% for unifieds, which is about 2 months worth of expenditures. We ended 1920 higher than normal. We had the 19.7, but that was because of the savings that we realized with campuses shutting down. So we had a savings under substitutes and extra duty, utilities, fuel costs, and other costs associated with campuses. And we're currently projected to have an ending fund balance at the close of 2021 of 15.86%. And we're very fortunate that we have healthy reserves. It is our goal to stay around that 17% level of expenditures. And we are in a good place where we can be strategic and very thoughtful through our decisions for our future planning. Next slide. So we're required to submit a certification to the county office. The county office will either then approve, conditionally approve, or disapprove the budget after they perform a very technical review of our budget. The county office must provide either the conditional approval or disapproval in writing. If they approve it though, they typically just send us a letter as well, letting us know that they've approved our budget. And we are recommending at this time a positive certification. We're able to meet our financial obligations for the current and the next 2 years. Next slide. So here are some next steps ahead. Again, we're recommending that positive certification. Our reserves are very healthy, as you've seen. Things can change though very quickly. So we're going to closely monitor them and what's going on with the economic impact due to COVID-19. And then the governor will release his proposed 21-22 budget, as I said, by January 10th. So we're looking forward to reviewing that. School Services of California holds a workshop. They're going to do it virtually this year, where they go through in very detailed, a half-day workshop, reviewing what the governor has proposed and how that will impact school districts. And we're also continuing to adjust and follow the state guidance, which seems to change daily sometimes. And then we will also bring second interim, which is a budget update through January 31st, and we'll bring that to you in March. Thank you for sitting with me through that very long presentation. Are there any questions?
Again, did we have any hands up at all for that one? But hold on one second, Kelly, for the public. Okay, Kelly.
Hi, Kelly. Thank you so much for your report as a new board member in my first meeting. It's a lot of information to process, but you make it really easy to understand. So thank you for walking me through it, and also to Jane too for helping me understand this first interim report. I do have a couple of questions. You had a slide there on the LCAP total budget expenditures for high needs students, and I was wondering how we determine those expenditures, like who specifically are those high needs students? There was, I think, about 8 million that was expended, and I'm just wondering, is that for special ed? Is that for some of our lower achieving students? Like how is that, how are those expenditures determined by that LCAP, non-LCAP?
Yeah, so those are funds that are generated that create that supplemental grant. And those are for the students that we refer to as our unduplicated students, which are students that are low income English learners or foster youth. And so they generate those funds. We typically get about 20% more than the base funding that we get for every student to meet those additional needs that those students typically have. So those are the students that we're serving, as well as the general students as well. All students benefit from those funds as well, because we're serving high needs. Sometimes there's a side effect of serving others as well in those areas that we select. And we set those goals through the local accountability plan. It was modified a little bit different this year. We had the learning continuity plan, the LCAP, not LCAP. And we were required to address those federal funds that we received, as well as the supplemental grants.
Okay, thank you. I think that answers that question. And I do have one more question on the COVID funds. So it's my understanding that we received, I think it's about 8 million for COVID money. So do we have a projection on any further state or federal funds, especially given the new federal administration? Has there been any word about any further COVID money that we might receive?
Yeah, just this week, they've talked about another stimulus package and possibility of some of those funds coming to education. It's still very new. I am watching those for those news alerts that come through. So as I know more, I can share that with the board. I typically do a board update at most board meetings. So as I find those things out, I will share those at the next meeting.
Okay, and then it's my understanding that there's about 968,000 left in those COVID funds that are unspent. And so I'm wondering when that needs to be spent by, and has there been any talks or plans or ideas amongst the board prior to this evening about how we can use those funds? It seems like what I looked at in the report that we received, that a lot of the COVID funds were categorized into learning loss mitigation and necessary purchases like PPE equipment and things like that. But I'm just wondering, you know, what we can do with this 900,000. I have some ideas, and I'm just wondering, what's been the talks about that, or is it allocated? Is it already allocated to something?
Yeah, so every Monday when we meet as a cabinet, and we talk about what the needs are for the district based on discussions that we've had also with our site principals. So we meet with them and find out what the needs are. We've been using them to, you know, fund the learning hubs, the tutoring, the intervention that's been going on, as well as we use quite a bit to purchase technology and, like you had mentioned, PPE with those funds. So we do have about $1 million left. The timeline on those, we have spent the state learning loss mitigation funds, except for $100,000. That has to be spent by June of 2021. And then we have two other funding sources, the ESSER funds, which are the emergency secondary and elementary funds that were given to us by the federal government. And we have until September of 2022 to spend those. We have spent part of them. We are planning again to continue those learning hubs because we can't use the learning loss mitigation funds, those end this month, but we're going to continue those learning hubs with those funds through the end of June. Because even, you know, hopefully when we have students back on campus, we still know that there's going to be a need for intervention. So we're planning on setting some funds aside for that as well. And then some still is unassigned because we actually have until September of 2022 to spend those funds. The last pot of money is the governor's education emergency funds, which are actually some of the coronavirus relief funds that the governor chose to allocate to education specifically. And we also have until September of 2022 to spend that as well. And we haven't started spending those funds yet. So that $1 million that's still sitting unallocated, we do have some time to spend.
Okay, and I think this is just, you know, for maybe a further discussion on another agenda. I'd like to talk about, you know, what's the best use of those unassigned funds. Just throwing it out there, I think that perhaps hiring a few like temp counselors for our kids. I think right now, what I'm hearing a lot of is that our students are experiencing so much anxiety and stress and isolation and depression from not being in the regular school environment. And I'm just wondering, is there something that we can do now with that money to help some of our students? I'm not talking about hiring full-time staff or anything, but maybe some, you know, college interns or something that we can do for our kids right now with that money. And there could be other ideas. I'm hoping we can have a discussion on, you know, this unassigned money that's out there that, you know, how can we help our students with that?
Yeah, we have spent some funds on some mental health expenditures. I know our mental health clinicians have been doing mental health Mondays, sending out messages, and students are receiving some of that curriculum through their Zoom sessions, as well as we also expanded the contract that we have with our partnership with the city. with the YSS program. And so we've been working with them. And again, they do have interns, and they've been providing some additional mental health services as well. And we use the coronavirus funds to do so.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, I'm just it's just for further discussion amongst the board and what we can do with that. It's just something I noticed with those unassigned money left over. So
yeah,
thank you so much.
Just one thing to add to that, when we did receive the funds, there was no requirement to bring them to the board for approval, but we did actually initially, I think it was the budget workshop we had on a Saturday. We went through it, talked to the board, and we can certainly do that with the amount that's left. I know that in January, as we start talking about the LCAP and start our conversations there, maybe within the LCAP, we can talk about how we're going to use those remaining funds, because that is a big part of what the board sets a direction around the LCAP. So that's something that's going to start in January. So I'm thinking maybe that's something we can just fold into the LCAP when we discuss that with the board.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. One thing I did notice is that there's a lot of items on the consent calendar about some of the contracts that we've paid for Chromebooks and different supplies and things out of this COVID money. And one thing I wanted to ask or see if we can look into is whether we can look at grants from foundations or other things like of where we could get some of the Chromebooks from or things like that, so that we're not using up all of the money that we've gotten from the coronavirus relief. But I'm just wondering, there was the Verizon contract for hotspots. Are there companies that can, instead of us paying $40,000 to Verizon, are there companies that would be willing to do community service and help us out? Are we looking at some avenues like that where we could save a bit of this money and put it somewhere else? I'm just thinking there's a lot of money out there that we can maybe go after.
Yeah, we certainly do.
Yeah, definitely. I'm always looking for grant opportunities. I recently applied for a grant through Genentech, and we were awarded $55,000. And part of that funding can be spent on these type of expenditures, technology, as well as PPE, and we do plan on doing that. So we always are looking for opportunities, and we apply for lots of different funds and grants. We're not always awarded, but sometimes we do get lucky, but we are always looking at that. When we were looking at the hotspots in particular, we did reach out to the library because they did have some hotspots that they were offering with a partnership with T-Mobile, but they were not able to help us with that. They were already spoken for, within an hour of coming out with that. But then the other reason too that we went with Verizon is just because of the network. It is much more reliable and dependable, and for Vacaville, it made more sense rather than the T-Mobile network overall.
Yeah, and I completely understand the timeliness of this. We needed those hotspots and we needed those Chromebooks. I'm just looking towards the future, in terms of, and thank you for always keeping your eye out for different opportunities. But I'm just looking ahead, sort of.
There was a state grant, the state part, I don't know if Kelly, you remember this, the CDE partnered with some private businesses, but it all went mostly to Southern California, didn't it?
Yes, yeah, LA Unified matched that one up. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I do, if you don't mind.
Okay, John, go ahead.
Perfect. Kelly, thanks for the presentation.
Yeah.
Informational as always and easy to follow. So thank you. Question on the nutrition. Do we have any idea if any of the funding is going to continue into next year as it has through this first half of the school year?
Yeah, so August we were down. We actually had lower numbers than normal because the USDA had taken away those additional flexibilities of feeding all students. So we actually saw a dip in our participation and revenues at that point. But of course, Mr. Cardone, you know him, he goes after it. He figures out a way around things. And he was really good about promoting, along with Elaine and her assistants, on our program and what we have to offer, and really promoting that we are still creating meals from scratch. I know that now that the kids are distance learning, a lot of other school districts have moved to a grab and go option, and a lot of those items are pre-made. And so it's been really important to us here in Vacaville, and one in particular, to use local vendors and source as much as we can from them for our food options that we have available here locally. And so I think we are still going to see record numbers into the second part of the year. We broke over $1 million in revenue for October and November, and we believe by the end of December we will do the same. And so we are, I think it was 2 or 3 board meetings ago now, we talked about purchasing an additional food truck, which will provide some additional options to also bring meals to students, as well as serve students at Payton Elementary. They don't have the most functional kitchen. They're actually going to be able to cook meals on the food truck, and then serve from there as well. So we are, when these additional revenues do come in, we do reinvest them in the program and see what other options we have available to students. But I believe we will continue to see the revenue grow based on the flexibilities that have been given through the end of June.
Thank you. And on the Kimmy enrollment, the increase there, that's just a transfer, right? We're recapping the money and giving it to them. And
Yes.
so it's not a lot. Okay, fantastic. Right. Thank you on that. And then overall on the electric buses, what was our cost share of the with the grants and everything? Oh, no.
Yeah, we were able
I like
to
that
apply
cost
for
share.
Yeah, we were able to apply for grants, which we did actually 2.5 years ago. We applied for these grants. And so we're just now seeing everything come together, and we received our first bus last week, which is awesome. It's a really cool bus. So I'm excited to get the other 2, but they probably won't be here until summer, maybe spring at the earliest. But there is no cost to the district. We've worked with our community partners, as well as those the 2 state grants that we received from the California Energy Commission, and then the local grant that we received through the Yolo Solano Air Quality Management District. So there is no cost to the district, and we're very excited about that. And then for the infrastructure for charging the buses that we will purchase, we have worked with PT&E and then another local vendor, VE Electric, on installing the infrastructure for up to 10 charging stations, because we hope to eventually convert the majority of our fleet over to electric.
Very good. Like I said, I like that matching part. The 0 is good. So just more a comment than anything else. Obviously, the reserves concerns me 3 years out, and I've been around long enough to see that, and it never really comes to fruition. But that's usually because of the hard work of staff and taking a look at positions and saving money ahead of time. So, and I know Jane, you'll continue to take a look at that and keep an eye out, but that 3rd year is troublesome that we wouldn't be able to meet the 8% from there. I think the sooner we get the kids back into school, and the sooner we'll see the increased numbers from the losses that we had. And I've talked to Jane, or she mentioned it to me more than anything else, but the importance of marketing our schools again, to get students back into the classrooms and back to the schools. I'm hopeful we don't see as bad of a hit as it potentially could be, and I don't think it would be the numbers that we're looking at now. But again, the sooner we can get them back into classrooms, that's going to be the first start of actually capturing those kids again. I guess that might be a bad term, capturing kids, but getting those numbers back in. So more a comment than and a concern than a question on that one. Let's see my list. That is all I have. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. We've also, with the coronavirus relief funds, have hired 3 temporary re-engagement specialists. So they are currently reaching out to families to find out why they aren't attending school, You know, is it a connectivity issue? Is it a technology issue in general? Have they moved? Are they going to school somewhere else? So they are currently working on gathering all of that information from those 361 students.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, well, Kelly, I have to say you have the right job. You get great satisfaction from closing the books. That says a lot.
I do. I love it. It's so satisfying.
Okay, what I'd like to do is then, since you gave two things at once, maybe take 19C and 19D together, and we could get a motion to approve those and then do the roll call vote.
I'll move it. Or move them.
Do we get a second?
I'll second.
Cecil second, okay.
Unmute. Second.
Yes, thank you. Teresa?
Okay. Mr. Jansen, your vote, please.
Yes.
Ms. Welsh,
Yes.
Mr. Santillan,
Yes.
Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Dally,
Yes.
and Mr. Kitsis.
Yes, thank you. Okay, we have 19E, discussion of process for filling of government board vacancy. The board will discuss the process and criteria for the provisional appointment for the replacement of trustee Michael Silva. Do we have any comments from the attendees other than the board, the public?
No.
Okay, going once, going twice, 3 times. No?
No.
Okay. Jane.
Yes. So I'm just going to talk about a couple things. The board bylaw 9223 was attached to this, and 9223D lays out how the process of provisional appointments. One of the things it says in here is that it talks about you have to advertise in the local media, solicit candidates, which we did. And then it says a committee consisting of less than a quorum of the board shall ensure that applicants are eligible for board membership. I'm not sure that it's really necessary that a committee of the board actually goes through the applicants, or committee of a couple board members goes through the applicants. All that we have to determine is if they live within the VUSD boundaries, if they're 18 years or older, and if they're registered to vote. And that is something Teresa can do, or Teresa and I can do, and then notify the board. However, if the board really wants to have 2 or 3 board members sit down and go through them, we're fine. I just thought in the interest of your time, we could vet that since it's pretty simple. So this is in the board bylaw. It's not in law. It's not in the government code, but a board actually bypass their own board policy or bylaw as they agree.
Yeah, so maybe if we could just, stop right there for a second. I mean, again, this is purely a technical thing, going over those. There's no subjectiveness, there's no culling out based on qualifications or anything like that. So I would suggest that we vote to allow the district to do that, and then they will send us all the eligible applications that we can then look at. Does anybody have any thought or feeling about that?
I don't have a problem doing it, but the way just need to change the bylaws then. If
Right,
we're not going to abide, if
we
we're
can
not
vote to
going to
buy
abide by them.
Yeah.
Right, but if it's something that we think they can do in the future, let's do a policy change and make it right.
Absolutely. I pulled the CSBA sample and I'll go through it and bring it at a future board meeting with a revision without that committee part in there, because I agree, I don't really think it's necessary.
Okay, just so folks know, Shelley, her internet is down, so she is currently off, but she's working to get back on. So how would you like to do that, Jane? Do you want to take should we do that just at the end when we do it to say, and we'd like to do it that way?
Yeah, as long as I think general direction is fine.
Okay.
If nobody is opposed to it, then we can move forward with that. It looks like.
I just think that if we're bypassing the bylaw, we should just kind of officially say that we're doing that in this case.
Teresa?
Yes.
Teresa, do they need to vote or anything, do you think, or?
Yeah, we should probably take a quick vote just to suspend the bylaw.
Okay.
And then we have the direction, well, you know, they could share whatever direction they want us to take.
Okay. Do you want to wait, Michael? I have a couple more things.
Yes, sure.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to just mention is that we did post it generally at large. As you know, Michael Silva has two more years left, and he was an at-large, as opposed to a district board member. So we put it out there, and that again is something that's up to the board. We did ask our legal counsel as far as what the rules were there, and he kind of went over the fact that it could be construed either way, but that's something else, and you don't have to make any decision about it today. I just wanted to point that out. And when you look at the board applications, it might be something you want to take into account. That's up to you as a board. And then the process of interviewing. So the timeline, basically, we have to appoint, within 60 days. So Silva submitted his resignation on December 6th, which means we have until February 4th. So at the January 14th board meeting, we will come with an update and discuss again the process of interviewing, because we then on the January 28th, we can actually have the interviews, and they have to be at a public board meeting. Now, I've seen two different ways. I think when we had a vacancy a few years ago, we had quite a few people, and they all waited in the conference room and they came in one at a time so that the others wouldn't hear the questions. That's one way. And another way is, especially if you don't have a lot of candidates, you can just have them all in the room and they could take turns being the first to answer a question. This is not something that you need to discuss or decide tonight. We have time on the January 14th board meeting. We'll put this back on the agenda for you to talk about. I think it will help once you know how many candidates have applied. So just something for you to think about. And that's all I have for now.
Jane, just a clarifying question before I have everybody comment. So, but the district already advertised it, right? Because so it's advertised as at large. So it is an at-large vacancy at this moment. Now,
Yes.
And we can choose to do whatever we want as far as our preferences, but as far as applications go, it's an at-large.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Board members, any questions of Jane about the process or anything of us you want to talk about doing it?
I was kicked offline at home here, so I did miss the change in policy. What are we voting on? Can you briefly tell me?
You want me to go ahead, Mike, or do you?
So basically just so the district can evaluate the technical aspects of the applicants as opposed to a board committee doing it, because it's not subjective. It's just how old you are and if you're registered in the district and you haven't killed anybody.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Comments, questions, thoughts about the process?
I got a question. Even though it was initially sent out at large by the district, are we allowed to give more consideration for people who live in the area that is now designated there?
Yes, yes, you are.
Okay.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, and Daniel, I'll just say it, publicly, I think every other district is represented. So I would give preference. I won't say I'll do what I'll do, but I would give preference to someone who is, competent or qualified in that district.
And it is District 5, I believe. Is that the right number? District 5 by Markham.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that is something you know, when we bring forward the applicants, we'll make sure that you're aware of what district they reside in.
And is it 5 basically Markham, that area, that neighborhood?
Yes.
If you look on the website, Cecil, you can
Yeah.
see there's actually the, you know, where the district is drawn.
Yeah, I just trying to get it real quick.
Jane, do you need anything else?
No, I think we're ready just to vote on bypassing the bylaw 9223D as far as a committee. And then,
Okay, and I believe that the applications are due by January 4th, isn't that correct?
yes, I forgot to mention that. Yes. So yeah, our timing, we've got a good plan for the timing.
Okay, so does someone want to make a motion about bypassing for this time the bylaw that says that we're supposed to do it as a board committee?
I'll move for that.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion and a second that we bypass the bylaw. Teresa?
Okay. Miss Dally, your vote, please.
Yes.
Mr. Jansen,
Yes.
Mr. Welsh,
Yes.
Mr. Conley,
Yes.
and Mr. Santan.
Yes.
Finally, Mr. Kitsis.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. 19F, format for future governing board meetings. Jane?
Yes, this is just regarding the board's preference as far as 100% Zoom or a hybrid mixture. As you probably know, all of our board meetings since I think July, we have had them in person and have allowed those of you that feel better on Zoom to participate, as well as public to participate on Zoom. But there is a lot of, we have new board members, so I just wanted to bring it up again and see what is the will of the board. What would you prefer? This is the 100% Zoom. It's the first time we tried the webinar format, and I think it's working really well. We've had some bumps with the Zoom in the past. So I would just like from you how you would like to future formats. And of course, if things get better regarding COVID, we can always read and change as you prefer.
Any comments? Anybody?
I have a question. With being in the purple tier where we are, is it not kind of suppose that we won't gather in larger groups that aren't families? So until we're out of the purple tier, shouldn't we continue this and then visit it if we go into the red tier? I don't know. I thought that was kind of an understood. And
Well,
I think if we are kind of examples for the community of ways to behave in order to get our kids back in school, because I want our kids back in school, but everybody needs to do their part.
Yeah, and I think when we did start in person, a mixture of in person and online, it was around July, and I think the numbers were pretty high then. But really, truly, I really think the board, these are your meetings as a group, and it really is up to you as a board.
Any other thoughts?
At least while we're under this mandate, I would suggest we continue to do this. So the future, at least the next meeting. But after that, I prefer the in-person ones, and then the folks that want to do the Zoom can do that. And in all actuality, our schools can continue to add students even under purple, but we we have an MOU that's not allowing us to do that. So I enjoy the in-person ones is my goal to get back to, but that's just me.
I have a quick question. If we do go back to in-person, can we still have people in the community participate through Zoom?
Hmm?
They can do that? Because I
We've
mean,
done that.
look up tonight. At one point, we had 50 some odd people in the meeting. So I mean, and that's probably a lot more than an in-person would be if everything was fine. So I think as long as we could do that, I think that'd be great.
We've been doing that. Yeah, that's why we've had the hybrid mix. We actually had a lot of people of the public participating via Zoom when we were in person. So absolutely. What we can do is plan the January 14th in the same format, if that's okay with everybody, and then see where we're at. To Shelley's point, as far as the tier, and we can talk about it then if you want.
Yeah, I just want to say I agree with Shelley, and I mean I agree with John that I really like the meetings in person. I mean, it's better for me personally, but I agree with Shelley that I think it doesn't look right. It's not, to me, it's not right if we're meeting in person, but we're saying it's not safe for kids to come to school. I just think that if the kids are out and we're not bringing them back, then I think we should be the same. So that's my thought.
But I think our kids that are already in school will continue to come back to school. Am I correct? Our special ed students will still be coming back to school.
Yeah, they are.
So what, and the law or whatever this rule is allows us to, in theory, continue to add more students. It's the MOU that's holding it up.
Yeah, that's, I mean.
But I'm good with next meeting doing it this way, and then we can figure it out from there. Would be the good way.
Yeah, and we can revisit it each time and just talk, and see what we come up with. Okay. Next, we have 19G, approval of revised classified schedules. Are there any questions about that? I don't know if you read it. Anybody have a question? The request is to approve the revised classified employee schedule. Basically, it's because of minimum wage, and I understand we have hands up in the attendees. So, Teresa.
It went away. Ken, do you see any? Oh, okay, here we go. Magella Cullinan.
Okay, Magella, whenever you're ready. I don't see you. Has she gotten on?
Hi.
Oh, there you go. Okay, hello.
I was just going to speak on special ed. Special ed has not been brought at high school level back for in-person at all. It is not one time. My daughter has not been educated since March. No instruction.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's something you really need to look at. These are high school students that could be graduating and they're not getting instruction.
Magella,
we're failing our seniors. We're failing the high school special ed kids. We're probably failing them all, actually.
Thank you, Magella. I appreciate your comment. And, in general, maybe next time under the general, if it's not part of a board item, agenda item, to do it under there. We're just talking about the revised classified salary schedule. So it's not really the right time, but thank you for your comment. I appreciate it.
I think I was just commenting from the previous person that was speaking before the salaries came up, when they were saying about the special ed being back. Not all special ed has been back, and it should be noted that it has not been.
Duly noted that all special ed is not back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve as presented.
Need a second? Thank you, Cecil. Second. Teresa?
Okay. Ms. Dally, your vote, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Jansen?
Yes.
Ms. Welsh?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Santan?
Yes.
Mr. Kitsis?
Yes. And I just want to acknowledge how difficult it is for everybody with this, Zoom and, different things. So I understand that. 19I is the approval of memorandum of understanding. Oh, I'm sorry. 19H is the revised classified substitute salary schedule, which is basically similar to the last one.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Okay. Ms. Stell, your vote?
Yes.
Mr. Jansen?
Yes.
Ms. Welsh?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Santiago?
Yes.
Mr. Kitsis?
Yes. Okay, 19I is the approval of memorandum of understanding with the Yolo Solano Teacher Induction Program, Davis Joint Unified School District for $172,500 to do with credentialing requirements. Are there any questions about that?
If none, I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Okay. Mrs. Dally, your vote?
Yes.
Mr. Jansen?
Yes.
Ms. Welsh?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Santiago?
Yes.
And Mr. Kitsis?
Yes, thank you. Okay, what seems like a year and a half ago, we heard from Sasha about the approval of the verification of closure of early learning and childcare programs. Now it's time to vote on that. Are there any comments from the public?
Nope.
Panelists? Board members?
I'll move it.
Second.
Okay. Mrs. Dell, your vote?
Yes.
Mr. Jansen?
Yes.
Ms. Welsh?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Santan?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, 19K is pulled. So we'll look at 19L, which is the approval addendum to contract with speech pathology group. I'm just wondering if Sasha is there, just like a very quick thing, because if you haven't been involved in this, it's hard to understand why we're spending so much money on this stuff. So just if you could give a brief overview of that.
Yes, I do. And I'm here, but I couldn't start my video. So if Ken wants to let me, he can, or you can just trust that I am still here and being appropriately attentive. So the speech pathology group contract, that is our probably our biggest contractor for speech pathologists. And for our new governing board members, there has been a dearth of speech pathologists in the field. That's something that not just we in Vacaville struggle with, the state struggles, the nation struggles. There just aren't enough speech pathologists. And so we do have to contract frequently because we aren't able to do enough direct hires through the district. So this contract, I tried to put some information on the cover sheet, but the good news on this is we'll actually be able to pay for this increase on the contract completely out of the COVID funds. And that makes sense because one of the things that we weren't able to do last year was get all of our students all of their services with all the closure. And so to be able to ensure that we're doing those makeup minutes and seeing students, and right now our speech pathologists are doing a mixture of in-person and virtual sessions, but being able to add these 2 additional speech pathologists will allow us to continue to make up minutes and meet the services that we have for students on our IEPs. I think Michael is frozen.
He's asleep. Look at him.
I just really bored him with that.
So if Michael must have had some technical difficulty. We could wait.
There he is.
I was gone there for a second.
We fell asleep.
I think I went to the astral plane.
You looked peaceful.
Okay, so did anything happen while I was gone?
No, but I'll move it.
Make you a speech pathologist.
I'll second it.
Okay, we got a motion and a second.
Can I ask who the second was, please?
Cecil.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Are we ready to vote?
Yep.
All right, Mrs. Dally. Thank you. Yeah, that's a yes. Mr. Jansen?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Santiago?
Yes.
Ms. Welsh?
Yes.
Mr. Kitsis?
Yes. Can I just tell you how weird that was? Everybody was frozen on my screen and I was talking.
You were frozen.
That's what happened to me. My internet went down.
Yeah. Okay, we're on the consent calendar. So for everybody, now in case you don't know this, the consent items get done in one fell swoop for all of them. But if there are any consent items that you have a question about or you actually want to talk about, we pull them. And then we vote on the rest of the consent items and we talk about the ones that are pulled. So does anybody have a consent item that they want to pull out before we vote on the totality of them? Okay. So it's recommended that the board approve the consent calendar items as presented.
I'll move it.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion a second.
Okay. Mrs. Dowey, your vote?
Yes.
Mr. Jensen?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Santiago?
Yes.
Ms. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Kitsis?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we just have a couple of informational items here. There's a health supplemental health material that you can look at the Educational Services Center if you want to view it. It's called Comprehensive Health Skills, and there's also a primary instructional material for high school math that is also at the ESC, and you can view that if you want to see it. And it's called Practical Business Math Procedures. Other than that, we have future business January 14th at 6:30. So there's no, Teresa, there's no closed session before then?
No, those are just the open session times that we list.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, we
And,
will.
So
we'll
that's
have-
at 6:30, and there's also one on the 28th at 6:30. And it says it's the Educational Service Center, but for sure, January 14th is going to be a Zoom meeting like we just talked about.
Yeah.
Same as this. Thank you, Ken, very much for helping us through this meeting.
It was so much better to hear and participate.
Well, we do have a request from Elaine. She'd like you to stay on the screen so that she can get a picture of the board.
Okay.
Let me bring Elaine in.
I'm here.
Is she still awake?
I'm still here.
All right. Let me bring you in.
Maybe she's sleeping.
I'm not sleeping.
Elaine, do you need any of us to, like, non-board members to stop our video or do something so they all group together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would actually be great. There's nothing else after this, right?
Yeah,
There's a closed session, but it's a different meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Chris and Kelly and Dan, do you guys mind logging off? They're like, nope, do not mind.
Okay.
Manila, you as well, if you could.
Getting rid of myself. Okay. Now I'm logging off.
Well, we're
I'm
done.
just telling you right now, I want to be where Peter Brady was. Okay, put me up in that spot. All right.
A
Michael.
story about a boy named Johnny.
Yeah.
Johnny Bravo.
Did we adjourn the meeting for the other participants?
Oh,
Yeah. Can I leave? Can we adjourn or?
yes, let's adjourn the meeting.
Okay, I'll leave. And then you could do your photo without.
Okay.
Unless you want to be in it, Jane.
We'll see you guys in closed session.
Okay, Jane.
You don't need me, right, Elaine?
I don't.
Okay, bye.
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 I'll close the meeting as soon as you're done. I can't do that without throwing you all out.
Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm just gonna count to 3. If you guys could all just look into your cameras and smile for me, that would be much appreciated. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Let's just take one more just in case that one didn't turn out well. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, big smiles. Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. And congratulations.
Thank you and congratulations, everyone.
Does everybody have the closed session login?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to end this meeting now.
Okay, so we'll see you in about
Thank
5
you.
minutes.
No, I don't go to closed session. I'll see you later.
Yes, not you.
Okay.